Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto is forced to abandon his true identity. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. As the Rasengan and Chidori collided, the force was so powerful that the river that Naruto and Sasuke were standing on began to spin in like they were the center of a vortex in the water. Both knew that this would be their first real fight against each other, and that it would most likely be their last. Although he would never admit it, Naruto was afraid of the cursed seal placed on Sasuke. He had seen what the cursed seal could allow a human to do. Kyuubi had wanted to challenge its power, thinking it a worthy challenge. And if the Kyuubi thought that it was a worthy challenge, then he did not know how he was going to be able to face it. He began to feel the power of the Chidori increase. Soon he felt himself being pushed back, until he was completely overwhelmed. He could feel his Rasengan breaking apart. Its outer shell of chakra cracking, coming closer and closer to shattering. When it finally broke, the explosion sent both combatants into the opposing canyon walls. Naruto was inside of a 6-foot crater on the wall, while Sasuke was standing on the water on the other side, seeming unharmed. As his vision began to darken, he realized that he was going to die. So he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was in a tunnel. He recognized it as the one leading the seal that held the Kyuubi. Walking down the eerily silent corridor, he came upon a sight he would never forget. The Kyuubi was sitting calmly, light shining upon it. Its full form visible to him for the first time, from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tails. All in full view. Kyuubi, Naruto stated calmly. Kit. The Kyuubi answered back in an equally calm voice. None of the usual hatred, anger, or negative emotions it usually showed. All of them seemed to be gone. It looks like this is it. I can't say that it was nice while it lasted, but it was interesting. Naruto stated. There is something that might work. But even I don't know what will happen if we do it. And what is that? Naruto questioned. We could fuse into one being. What? You think I'm going to do that? Then I really would become a demon. You really think I am going to do that? Then everyone will know what I am and hate me. Not just the adults, but everyone will. Kit, most likely, even if we fuse we won't survive this battle. Those damn cursed seals, if someone like you were to have one put on you and you used it, you would have enough chakra to level the entire fire country with just the flick of your wrist. That Uchiha, at level 2 of the cursed seal, could likely rival us in power. So, I'm going to die either way. Then I have to make sure that Orochimaru doesn't get his hands on Sasuke. This will truly be the end of his ambitions. Let's do it, Kyuubi. At least this way, maybe, everyone will see the power that I possess. They will tell stories of how I went up against the great Uchiha blood and defeated it. That's the spirit, kid. We die here with honor, our names forever burned into history. This will be so exciting. Let's do it, kid. Running up to the gates of the seal, Naruto tore off the small paper seal that held the gates shut. Instantly the gates and paper seal began to smoke and vanish. As both concentrated and began to gather chakra, both yelled out at the same time. Ninjin Akori Fyujan no Jutsu. Akori Ninjin Fyujan no Jutsu. Both Kyuubi and Naruto could feel their chakra begin to flow into one another. It started slowly, but gained speed with the passing seconds. Both chakras were flowing in an endless loop, blurring together and fusing into one. Naruto could feel their minds beginning to blend together. Every memory the Kyuubi possessed was flooding his mind. Too fast. Everything is happening too fast. Naruto screamed in his mind. You can ask the other demons in hell when you get there. On the outside, Sasuke was getting ready to finish off Naruto. Standing over Naruto, he began to speak. I'm sorry, you are my best friend. That is why it has to be you that I kill. I have chosen this path, and you have chosen yours. Unfortunately, for me to get to my goal, I have to end your path. Concentrating his chakra and forming the hand seals, he formed the Chidori. Just as he was about to plunge his attack into Naruto's chest, there was an explosion of chakra. There was so much that Sasuke was pushed back. What the hell? It's like during your fight with Neji. What is this chakra? How did you get so much power? Sasuke shouted at Naruto. You know, this is the power your brother was after. When you last saw him, he was after me. Because I have this power, and the group he is with wants it. This power is my salvation in my time of need, like when I fought Neji or Gaara, but it is also my curse. If you don't want it, then give it to me. There is no way that your body can create this much chakra without you killing yourself. If only it were that simple. You see, this power comes with a curse that no one should have had to possess. Have you ever noticed how most of the adults in Konoha look at me? I can see it in their eyes. They hate me. They despise me. I think that they wish that I would just die. If I had died on the mission to the Wave Country, I know everyone in Konoha who would have paid his or her respects at any service that would have been held for me. Kakashi-sensei, Iruka Nichan, you, Sakura, maybe some of the other Rookie 9, and our third Hokage. Those are the only people in this world that have ever cared for me. Not even my mother or father. I don't even know what happened to my mother. She gave birth to me on the day that the Kyuubi was defeated. That's all I know. I had to figure out who my father was on my own. You want to know who he was? He was the fourth Hokage. He sacrificed his own flesh and blood to seal the Kyuubi away where it could never hurt anyone ever again. All of the adults know this, yet they don't care. They don't see Naruto, they only see the Kyuubi. Well, if all they see is the Kyuubi, then I might as well make it a bit more obvious to everyone. None of the children in this village know, yet they still hate me. So I might as well give them a reason. Sasuke, as punishment for the crime of treason against the village of Konoha, I give you two choices. Return peacefully, or I will make sure you or both of us end up going home in body bags. It's your choice, so choose. As Naruto spoke, Sasuke could feel more and more chakra flowing out of him. It infuriated him to no end how, dead last, could surpass him. You're forgetting the third option. And what is that? Naruto questioned. I kill you. And with that, Sasuke charged Naruto. Ah! Naruto screamed, and released everything he was holding back. In Konoha, Sakura sat at the western gate to Konoha. She worried about what was happening out there. It was late afternoon. They had left in the morning. That was when she sensed an immense chakra. Then she realized where she had sensed this chakra before. Naruto, she thought. But there was so much chakra. Too much. Oh my god, he must have done what Lee did during his fight with Gaara. He must have opened the celestial gates. But even Lee didn't release this much. For him to release this much, he must have. Oh no, Naruto. At the same time, every adult in Konoha could sense the chakra, and knew what it meant. The seal was broken, and the power of the Kyuubi had been unleashed yet again. Shikamaru, Kiba, Lee, and the sand trio stood on the canyon wall, looking down at the devastation below. The two great monoliths that had once decorated the opposing canyon walls were now nothing but rubble blocking the flow of the river that had run through the canyon. The canyon walls were littered with cracks and craters. Down below, they could make out two shapes. As Gaara lowered them down into the canyon, via his sand, they saw Sasuke's battered body, with a hole in its chest. The other body was strange. Two legs protruded out of what looked to be like 9 large, furry, foxtails. What is that? And where is Naruto? Kiba asked. Whatever it is, it had enough power to do all of this damage. As for Naruto, I honestly don't know. For all we know, his body was vaporized by that explosion of chakra. Kiba, Lee, wrap Sasuke's body up. Gaara, would you please carry both Sasuke's body and that thing's body as well? Asked Shikamaru. Yes, I will. He stated simply. After Sasuke's body had been completely wrapped in bandages, Gaara used the sand to carry everyone, including himself, back to Konoha. Sakura sat looking out over the road. Soon she saw a group moving down the road towards her. Running to meet them, she was surprised to not see Sasuke, however she did notice the dead body. Oh no, Naruto. Where is Sasuke? She asked. Actually, Sakura-chan, that is Sasuke. Lee stated. But, then where is Naruto? Where could, she suddenly stopped, realizing just what Lee was saying. Why you mean, Sasuke is dead? She questioned quietly. Hi. Shikamaru stated. All across the village people heard her scream. It was a scream that cut everyone that heard it to the core, a scream of total sorrow. Kyuubi. Inner Sakura. Naruto, in his mind. Talking. Sakura sat looking out over the road. Soon she saw a group moving down the road towards her. Running to meet them, she was surprised to not see Sasuke, however, she did notice the dead body. Oh no, Naruto. Where is Sasuke? She asked. Actually, Sakura-chan, that is Sasuke. Lee stated. But, then where is Naruto? Where could, she suddenly stopped, realizing just what Lee was saying. Why you mean, Sasuke is dead? She questioned quietly. Hi, Shikamaru stated. All across the village people heard her scream. It was a scream that cut everyone that heard it to the core, a scream of total sorrow. It had been 3 days since Naruto's team had returned carrying a dead Sasuke, and a badly wounded, whatever it was. Sakura sat looking out over the road. Soon she saw a group moving down the road towards her. Running to meet them, she was surprised to not see Sasuke, however, she did notice the dead body. Oh no, Naruto. Where is Sasuke? She asked. Actually Sakura-chan, that is Sasuke. Lee stated. But, then where is Naruto? Where could, she suddenly stopped, realizing just what Lee was saying. Why you mean, Sasuke is dead? She questioned quietly. Hi, Shikamaru stated. All across the village people heard her scream. It was a scream that cut everyone that heard it to the core, a scream of total sorrow. Tsunade-sama, the 5th Hokage of Konoha, couldn't help but sigh. The last 3 days had been hell for her. The rookie team had returned all right, but the village was in an uproar. The official report she had released to the village was that the traitor Sasuke had attempted to summon a demon and had been killed in the process. She had also let out the rumor that it had been Naruto Ni-chan that had seen the whole thing, and had in fact killed the young Kyuubi whose body was brought back by Gaara, formerly of the Sand now of the Leaf, and his siblings. Tsunade rubbed her temples. What I really need, she thought, is a stiff drink and a card game. Unfortunately neither one was likely to happen as of yet. The Anbu teams hadn't been able to find Naruto's body in the wreckage that the chakra explosion had left behind. Even worse, the young demon that the team had brought back was still alive, and had in fact been showing signs of waking up. To compound the trouble, Sakura had been to the room Tsunade had claimed Naruto was resting in every day since she found out about Sasuke's death. Just thinking about that girl made the Tsunade's blood boil. How can that damn girl blame this on Naruto? She wondered for the 100th time. It's not like he didn't try. A single tear trickled down her face. Hell, I don't even know where that baka is. Just then, the door burst open, filling her study with light. Sakura stalked up and down the hallway in front of Naruto's room. How could that dobe break his promise to me? She mouthed. Up until 5 minutes ago, she had been trying to break into the room that she had been told Naruto was in. Sakura took a moment to glare at the Anbu standing just to one side with a relieved expression on his face. Sakura thought about trying to break in again, but until she regained her voice it was useless anyway. Flashback to 5 minutes ago. Sakura threw herself at the door to Naruto's room, trying to force her way past the Anbu guard. As she fought she screamed every vile epithet she knew at the occupant of the room beyond her. She had only found out this morning what room Naruto had been put in, but the moment she knew, she attempted every means possible to break in. She had every intention of killing her former teammate. Quite frankly, she intended to make it permanent. Unfortunately, for her, the doctors had been told that nobody was to disturb the quiet of the ward. Even more unfortunately, for her anyway, the guard found it a relief. The Konoha doctors were excellent at silence jutsus. Flashback end. They had told her that there was a good chance she might regain control of her voice by tomorrow. Damn them. I'll kill those damn doctors, that arrogant Anbu and Naruto. As nobody else could hear her thoughts, let alone her voice, all they saw was her nodding to herself. Sakura was considering one last attempt for the day when it hit her. I'm not talking about the puny ideas that regular ninja had. I'm talking about the mother and father of all evil ideas. This will work, crowed her inner mind. After all, Naruto had to wake up sometime. Tsunade, yelled the outline, we need you to come quickly. What's so damn important, Jiraiya? Asked Tsunade. It's waking up. Elsewhere in the hospital. Yawn. He stretched out and shook out the 3 tails that had been curled around him. Looking back at this conversation, Naruto would later realize that this was the point that he lost the edge of panic he had been carrying. Not because there was any less reason to worry, but because the normally loud and annoying fox had been keeping remarkably relaxed. As far as I can tell, things did not go the way the fourth had planned. Exactly what do you mean? I mean, Kit, that we are both fused and separate. And that means exactly what? It means that our minds have, well, for lack of a better word, merged. Merged? Yes, the seal that the fourth used to seal me in you was meant to allow your body to eventually absorb my chakra and conscience, leaving you in sole control of both. Ironically, that is no longer possible, because to save yourself, you tore off the seal. That alone should have allowed me to escape, but as I had given my word to merge with you, I had no choice. A demon never goes back on its word. Period. Interestingly enough, this had little to none of the effect on Naruto that it would have had on most other people. So what does that mean? We both control this fox body? Or is it that I'm now your prisoner? While laughing lightly, no kid. Interestingly enough, I'd say you have full control of everything, including my chakra reserves. How is that possible if we are merged? Simple kid, you are the gatekeeper. Your mind is too strong for me to push aside anymore. I've been under your authority so long that even in my form, your mind has precedence. So, on to the next questions. Where are we? How long have we been out? And what are we going to do about our current form? Am I expected to become a demon now? And am I immortal? Good questions. Let's see. I don't know, I have very little idea. I don't think it's permanent, if you wish, and I don't know. You don't know much, do you? Not at the moment, kid. Back outside of an Anbu guarded room. It will work, I'll make it work. What's that young lady? Asked the Anbu. Incidentally, he's not very pleased that her voice is back already. Nothing, snarled Sakura as she turned and glided down the hall. That was odd, thought the guard. It is the perfect idea, gloated the inner Sakura. There is no way he'll be able to resist my charms. Then when he least expects it, heh, chuckled Sakura to her inner mind. Then I drive a dagger into his heart. Had Sakura been a little less preoccupied with her thoughts, she would have noticed a certain blue-haired, pale-eyed girl widen her eyes at the last comment. I think she's really planning to kill someone, thought Hinata. No, that can't be. Sakura wouldn't do that for any reason. If only Hinata could have known how wrong she was. Ah well, Hinata thought onward. Hinata had already been to visit all of her friends and family today. Kiba had been bedridden with long gashes across his arms and legs from his battle. Neji had been in even worse condition. He still had yet to gain conciseness. Choji had probably been in the worst condition of all of them. He had taken the red pill, and frankly, the doctors were amazed that he was still alive. Hinata had only one thought on her mind though. Naruto. Tsunade flew into the room where Kakashi stood guard with his kuni drawn. What's happening? She growled. This stupid toad comes charging into my office saying that the kitsune was waking up, and then I get down here to see it laying on the bed still unconscious. Tsunade-sama, said Kakashi, only a moment ago it stood up and stretched. Oddly, it never opened its eyes, but then it went all stiff like it was in shock, and collapsed again. Say kid, thought Naruto. I think it's time you let the shock wear off. Concentrate on your old body to change back, but beware, any human seeing it will probably become quite frightened. Hey, some of the other demons were frightened when I did it. Can I change into anything? I couldn't, so I doubt that you can. Just a thought. With that last thought, the fox that was Naruto opened its eyes and stood up again. To say that Tsunade was in shock would have been a major understatement. Primarily because what she could see was a young demon fox standing up and looking at its forepaw as if it had never seen it before. Ahem, Tsunade cleared her thought. This made the fox jump in a quite comical way and then stiffen. It didn't collapse, but you could tell from its body posture that every sense it had was alert. It also had its back toward Tsunade. Pardon me, kitsune, began Tsunade politely. I know that many creatures of your unique blood, meaning that she thought it was a demon, can understand human speech. In fact, many Yuma can speak it. But I need to know why you were found where you were, and are you the Kyuubi? Slowly, ever so slowly, the fox turned its head toward the Hokage. Pardon me, kitsune, began Tsunade politely. I know that many creatures of your unique blood, meaning that she thought it was a demon, can understand human speech. In fact, many Yuma can speak it. But I need to know why you were found where you were, and are you the Kyuubi? Slowly, ever so slowly, the fox turned its head toward the Hokage. Meanwhile, a certain young Hyuga was becoming quite confused. I'm not allowed to see Naruto-kun? Hinata asked in a quiet voice. Anyo Anbu-san. But I have been trying to see Naruto-kun for the last 2 days and it had not been a good day. First, that pink-haired chick had tried to force her way past. Then, after he had been forced to restrain her, she had started throwing not only kunai, but insults at him. To be honest, they were the type of insults that would have made a sailor say, "Would you watch your language, please?" there are truck drivers present. Just when things were starting to look up, this had happened. No sooner does that damn pink-haired chick leave than this blue-haired girl takes her place. Man, when will I catch a break? Please don't press your luck, young lady. I can understand your frustration, but I simply cannot allow you to enter. Please, murmured Hinata. Just a short look, to be certain he's alright. With the last of her sentence, Hinata had looked up at the Anbu guard, hoping against all hope that he would reconsider. Oh, shit, it's a Hyuga. I'm sorry, Hyuga-sama, but my orders come directly from the Hokage herself. I cannot permit you to open that door. His face softened slightly. I would if I could, Hyuga-sama, but I don't think that even I could break the jutsu that Tsunade-sama placed on the door. If I heard her right, your Byakugan will not be able to pierce the walls of this room either. I'm truly sorry. Hinata had been trained in proper etiquette since she was quite young. This gave her just enough backbone to answer the last statement. Anyo Anbu-sama, I know that you are only doing your job. With those last parting words, the last of Hyuga Hinata's courage left her, and she fled the hospital thinking, if only I could have gotten in. Perhaps I could have found a way to tell him how I feel this time. The fox's head slowly, ever so slowly, turned to her, and Tsunade could not help but let out a gasp. Those eyes, they're Naruto's eyes. Indeed, now that the fox had turned to face them, Jiraiya and Kakashi were also stunned speechless, because they're looking out of the fox's body were a pair of bright blue eyes that burned with a familiar intensity. In fact, the only change in them was that they were now silted, as the Kyuubi's had been. "En Naruto?" asked Tsunade quietly. Once again, the trio could only stare as the fox gave a nod of agreement. "What? How? When?" said Jiraiya, his jaw hanging halfway to the floor in shock. Naruto, the demon fox, just whimpered slightly. "What?" asked Kakashi. "What's the matter, Naruto?" "Well, besides the obvious, I mean." Naruto simply whined again, then he lay back down with his front paws hanging off the edge of the bed. "What can I do for you, Naruto?" asked Tsunade. "Do you need something?" Naruto nodded again. "What do you need? Blankets? Towels? Food? It must be food, you must be hungry. Wait right here, I'll be back." With that, Tsunade rushed out of the room now on a frantic search for food. Had she been a little more attentive, and a little less caught up in her thoughts, she might have noticed that the fox was now shaking its head no. Back in a certain hallway, outside of a certain room, a certain Anbu member was well on his way to losing his temper. "Listen, kid, I wouldn't care if you were the fourth himself. I am only accountable to Tsunade herself at the moment," and she said, "No visitors." "Look," growled Kiba. "I'm no visitor. My friends and I just want to talk to that baka for a moment, okay?" Beside him, Shino, Lee, Akamaru, and Shikamaru nodded in agreement. "I said no and I meant no. Damnation, why the hell are all of you coming to see an unconscious brat anyway?" "Because," said Shino calmly, "we are his friends." "Yes," yelled Lee, "and we must reignite the flame of his youth. This is so troublesome. What he is trying to say, Anbu-sama, is that we need to tell him we have no hard feelings toward him, even if he didn't bring back that bastard Uchiha," said Shikamaru in his usual dulcet if lazy tone of voice. "Look, kids," said the Anbu guard. "Listen slowly and carefully because I'm only going to say this one time. You can not enter without the Hokage's permission. Did you get it that time?" Just then, the five shinobi were startled to see Tsunade sweeping down the hallway muttering to herself. At last, thought Kiba, "Tsunade-sama, how nice to see you." Tsunade stopped momentarily, and gave Kiba a good looking over. "What do you want, young men?" "Well, Hokage-sama," started Shino. "We came to see Naruto, but this baka of a guard won't let us enter." Tsunade blinked a few times at this statement. "He won't let you see Naruto? I knew I should have gone cloud-gazing instead," thought Shikamaru. "Yes, Hokage-sama. Our friend Uzumaki Naruto is on the other side of this door, but we have been told that we can't enter." Tsunade blinked a few times. "Who said that?" "I did," answered the Anbu guard. "Shit." Tsunade whipped around at the sound of a voice coming from behind her, and before she took a moment for thought, she pounded the guard with that demonic strength that fright gave her. "Damn it, don't scare me like that," she said, and then turned back to face the three boys who were busy sweat dropping. "As for you three, don't bother to try entering, nobody is getting in there." "I made certain of that." "But Hokage-sama," began Kiba, "we really need to." Tsunade cut him off. Naruto isn't taking visitors at the moment, he needs some time to adjust. That being said, she swept off down the hall, leaving behind 3 confused shinobi, and 1 concussed and sleeping guard. Now that the initial shock had worn off, Jiraiya and Kakashi were trying to guess what it was that Naruto wanted. Milk? Cereal? Toast? A new kunai? Naruto just lay in the bed with his head resting between his front paws and rolled his eyes. How stupid are these 2 kitsune? As far as I can tell, they are more intelligent than most. They are still dealing with the shock, however. You're talking to me about shock? You have someone to talk to, they do not. I suppose that I'll need to give them a hint then. I know. Naruto heard Jiraiya say, I bet he's bored and wants to read one of my books. An almost imperceptible growl stopped him from moving to get one, however. Naruto was now standing up. He looked both of them straight in the face, and then promptly turned his back on them. "Ah, I think that I get it now," said Jiraiya. "He wants to be petted. What a cute little Naruto." "Does he want a petting?" "Yes, he does. Don't you, Snoogie?" Before he could take more than 2 steps, however, Naruto whipped around, snapped his teeth at Jiraiya's hand. "Evil little vermin, I should put you out of your..." His voice died off as Naruto's eyes suddenly went an evil red, and his whole body started to glow. Naruto, I think that he was probably kidding," said Kakashi carefully. "I do believe that he is correct, Kit. If I have any grasp of your human concept of humor, I would guess that he was less than serious." "Yeah, I know. I just wanted him to get serious." Once again, Naruto the Kitsune turned and faced the other way. This time Kakashi caught the drift. "I think that he wants a moment of privacy." Once again, Naruto whipped around, and Jiraiya took an involuntary step backwards. This time, however, Naruto was nodding. Kakashi chuckled slightly under his breath. "Alright, Jiraiya and I will be waiting outside." Naruto sighed. At last, those 2 morons took the hint. "I wonder what happened to Tsunade Baba." "I honestly do not know, Kit. At the moment I think that you probably have other problems to deal with, however." "True enough. Now I just have to focus, correct?" Without waiting for a reply, Naruto concentrated on changing his form back into a human. There was a few moments pause as his body hunted around for the right morphic signal, and then Naruto the human stood up and stretched. Only to grab the blanket off the bed and wrap it around himself in a makeshift toga a second later. Ya no Kyuubi, there may be a downside to this shift thing after all. And what would that be, Kit? Clothing primarily. Foxes do not need clothing, Kit. But humans do. Well, I guess we will see what everyone else has to say, and then make a decision based on that. Mental shrug. Whatever you say, Kit. Kakashi, Jiraiya, I'm back. Kakashi and Jiraiya walked in and stopped talking. Naruto thought that they had been discussing some inane drivel, but when they stopped, he grew worried. What is it, guys? Naruto's 2 former mentors could only stare in shock. Naruto was no longer a little boy. He was a young adult, and he bore a very striking resemblance to the 4th Hokage, except for his hair and his eyes. Naruto's hair was as spiky as ever, but now it had an interestingly wild twist in the color. Long strands of white, red and blonde hair stuck out from his head at every angle, and oddly, the roots seemed to be a pitch black. Overall, it looked like Naruto's head was on fire. The second thing was his eyes. They were still the same stunning blue they had always been, but now they had vertical slits, just like Kyuubi's. After a moment of studying Naruto's new appearance, Jiraiya broke the silence. "Well, Naruto, whatever happened, it appears that you've changed more than a little in appearance." "In what way, Jiraiya-sensei?" "Well, to start with, you're nearly as tall as I am. Secondly, the whisker markings on your face have enlarged a little bit, and have turned blue. Outside of that, the only real changes are your hair color, and the pupils of your eyes." As Naruto took a moment to digest this information, Tsunade walked in with a tray containing a bowl of ramen. "Well, Naruto, all I could get was insta." Suddenly Tsunade realized that there was somebody sitting on Naruto's bed. It startled her enough to throw the tray and the ramen right at the young man, and before she could control herself, Tsunade had lashed out, attempting to hit this wild-looking newcomer in the face. Naruto, on the other hand, had no compunctions about dodging. First, he caught the tray of ramen, being careful not to spill any, of course, and then he reached out and caught Tsunade's arm rather than being hit. Tsunade was once again shocked by this stranger in front of her as he managed to stop her attack. With her inhuman strength, she should have smashed every bone in his hand to splinters before he stopped her. The odd young man, however, just chuckled good-naturedly. "Thanks for the food, Tsunade-sama, but it works better if I eat it rather than bathing in it." Kakashi decided that it was time to break the ice a little bit. "So, Naruto, Jiraiya and I were having a discussion earlier, and I was wondering, what do we call you now? Personally I favored Narubi, but," interjected Jiraiya, "I favor Kyubito. I don't remember whose fic I got the names from, but if you tell me, I'll give you credit for them." Naruto shook his head and gave a short laugh. "Sorry guys, but it's still Naruto. Outside of some additional memories, a bit more chakra, and a couple of sweet new techniques, I am still the same person. So I think I'll keep the same name. Naruto?" Tsunade had whispered the name as though she was having a hard time accepting it as a reality. Naruto turned to Tsunade and bowed slightly. "In the flesh, Oni-chan. And the fox? It appears that Kyuubi's departure has left me with the ability to shift forms at will. Oni-chan, are you okay?" Naruto waved a hand in front of the disbelieving Tsunade's face. "Hello, Tsunade? Hokage-sama? Hey Baa-chan." Once again, Tsunade's fist whipped out. "I thought I told you not to call me that." Jiraiya and Kakashi watched in amusement as every punch thrown at Naruto was dodged or parried. Tsunade had developed an evil glint in her eyes, and finally Naruto left an opening allowing Tsunade to pound him toward a wall. Naruto did not make the usual imprint, however. He flipped over in midair and landed lightly on the wall while rubbing his jaw. "Damn it, Oni-chan, that stings a little bit." Nobody could help it. Kakashi and Jiraiya started howling with laughter, and Naruto cracked an easy grin. Tsunade seemed torn for a moment between anger and amusement, but in the end, she joined the rest of the group and laughed. 20 minutes later Naruto was running through the town at an easy lope. "Yano Kyuubi, this fox body is certainly nice for running around in. As you said before, Kit, it has some advantages and some disadvantages. At some point, you should try to learn how to speak your native language in this body though." "I suppose that you're right. So, where are we headed, Kit?" "I'm headed home at the moment. I can get some clothes, and then go back and talk to Oni-chan." "You respect that old woman, don't you?" Naruto stopped running for a moment. "Yes, I suppose that I do." After a few moments thought, Naruto once again started running for his home. Now for a little background, foxes were once considered a good luck charm in Konoha. In fact, the Uzumaki family had once had a relationship toward foxes the way that the Naras did towards deer or the Abrames toward their bugs. After the Kyuubi attack, however, that had all changed. Although foxes weren't actively hunted, if a person were to find a fox they were supposed to chase it out of town. In fact, many of the villagers had picked up less than highly intelligent dogs, and trained them to hunt down foxes. Naruto of course had Tsunade's protection in the form of a scroll she had tied to one of his legs. It read, "Protected." Therefore, Naruto made it all the way back to his apartment without more than a circumspect look in his direction. When he got there, however, he was shocked to find a burning pile of orange clothing in one of the dumpsters. Naruto didn't waste a minute but ran upstairs just in time to hear his former proprietor explaining to a new couple about how she had evicted an unwanted roomer. "Well, Kyuubi." "Yes, Kit? It appears that my luck lasted too long. Once again I'm stuck." Kyuubi, sounding very amused, thought back, "And you want my advice?" "I'll take anyone's advice at the moment." "Then my advice is to go talk to that old woman. I personally have no idea how to deal with you humans." Naruto the fox shook his head. "So much for divine intervention. Hey, you're asking the wrong side for help if you wanted divine." Naruto was slowly making his way back to the Hokage Tower. He was deep in thought, and consequently not paying much attention to the looks he was receiving. That is until he heard a low growl. Naruto turned his head. There standing between the buildings was a group of foxhounds. Well, so much for the Hokage's protection. Naruto was unsure how to fight in his current form. After all, the whole glowing thing he had done in the Hokage's tower had been instinct kicking in. Looking around quickly, Naruto took off into the park. A pack of 30 dogs directly on his heels. Hyuga Hinata had been having a bad week. First Naruto had gone after Sasuke, and then he had disappeared for 2 days. Then when Hinata finally found him, the Anbu said that Hinata wasn't allowed access. Sigh, if I were only stronger, I could have gone with, then maybe Naruto wouldn't have gotten hurt so badly. Hinata sat down on a park bench, and stared out over the grassy playground. Why'd I have to be so weak? Hinata had been sitting on the bench for no more than 2 minutes when she noticed something odd. There was a fox up in the tree no more than 20 feet away from her. As Hinata watched, it started to slowly climb down, but the fox had no more than set foot on the ground when it was attacked by a large pack of dogs that had been hiding in the bushes. What really intrigued Hinata was that this fox had a piece of paper tied to its forepaw. Although it was mud-splattered, the paper read, "Protected." To be honest, Hinata had always had a soft spot for animals, especially cute furry ones, so Hinata didn't hesitate for a moment in going over to the tree. Naruto was getting a little bit worried. He had been stuck up in this damn tree for almost an hour already. Yup, this was a smooth move, Kyuubi. Run up the tree, you said? They can't climb, you said. Now look at us. We're trapped by a bunch of dirty mongrels that I normally could chase off with a few well-chosen curses. Please try to remember, Kit, you asked me for help. I'm no longer used to running, I stand and fight. Naruto was trying to come up with a reasonable response for this when he first noticed Hinata. She was only 10 feet away and walking closer every minute. Oh, thank Kami-sama. Why is that, Kit? It appears that she sent the cavalry in. And after a beat. But don't ask me what that means, I have no idea. Hinata had no trouble at all getting the dogs to scatter. A couple of well-chosen hand motions and they all disappeared back into the bushes. Hinata then approached the tree. You can come down now, little guy, it's alright, I'll protect you. That's not a good idea, Hinata-chan. You may not have noticed, but those dogs haven't left yet. Come on down, poor little thing. You must be scared to death. Here, let me help you. Naruto, as a fox, could pick up on the language of the animals, even if he couldn't speak it yet. Therefore it came as a bit of a shock when he heard the leader of the dog pack snarl. She's collaborating with the enemy. She's a traitor. Get the girl. One moment Hinata had been reaching out to help a poor fox out of a tree, and the next she found herself laying on the ground fending off a horde of dogs. Just before she passed out, Hinata thought to herself, Naruto, help me. Humans are by nature an odd mix of latent abilities. Most humans, for example, have some measure of empathy, meaning that they can sympathize with, and in some cases share the pain of others. Some also have a slight telepathic ability, which means that they can read the minds of, and send thoughts to, those around them. Naruto, in combining with, and talking to, Kyuubi had developed these senses to some small extent. Hinata was in lots of trouble, and stress or shock tends to bring out latent abilities in humans. Therefore, when Hinata called for help, Naruto responded without a second thought. Kyuubi had only a moment before the fight began to make an observation to himself. Oh, now he wants to fight. Had Hinata been awake, or anyone else been close enough, they would have seen a red ball of flame descend into the middle of a pack of dogs. Just by landing, the chakra that surrounded it blew back the dogs, and, although Naruto didn't notice, healed Hinata's wounds. The dogs were having none of this, however. They had been trained to hunt down and, whenever possible, destroy foxes. An odd one was no exception. That is, it was no exception until the damn thing grew another tail and turned into a bright red missile. Hinata woke up a few moments after Naruto had come to her aid. She didn't know that it was him, of course, but when she awoke, she felt a cold nose pressing her neck. A moment later, something licked her on her cheek. Hinata sat up quickly. In her mind, she could still see the dogs jumping to attack her. She scanned the area quickly just in time to see the last of the pack run limping off with its tail between its legs. "Did you save me, little fox?" asked Hinata. As she looked down into its blue eyes, she couldn't help but wonder if it was trying to come up with a suitable answer. It certainly seemed intelligent enough. Naruto was slightly amused. "And who else would have been close enough to save you, if I may ask?" "She can't hear you, Kit." Sigh. "Yes, I know. Now what, on to Tsunade?" "Bring the girl with." "What? You refuse to change back without clothing, correct?" "Well, yes." "Then bring the girl with. She can tell the story as far as she knows it, and if that old woman is anywhere near intelligent, she'll fill in the holes herself." "Good point." Hinata was slightly amused when the fox gave a little tug on the sleeve of her coat. "What's the matter, little guy? Do you want something?" Hinata almost passed out again when the fox gave an unmistakable nod. "What in the name of Kami-sama?" Okay, what do you need?" The fox moved away a little bit and then stopped and looked back at her. "You want me to follow you?" Again, the fox gave an unmistakable nod. This has been a very odd day. Alright, lead on. Tsunade had been going over some paperwork, meaning that she was asleep, when somebody had started shaking her shoulder. Hokage-sama, you need to wake up, you have a visitor. The Anbu then quickly ducked Tsunade's punch. He thought he was safe until… Oh, crap. Hinata couldn't help but feel sorry for the Anbu as he went flying through the wall. He had managed to duck the punch, but in doing so, he had set himself up for the kick that followed it. Huh? Was that? Who's there? It's me, Tsunade-sama. Hinata? Tsunade sat up. How'd you get past the Anbu? Oh, never mind. I suppose I'll have to talk to their captain about them sleeping on the job again. What can I do for you? Hinata hesitated and then said, well, I followed this fox, and he led me here. Huh? Fox? Tsunade then caught sight of Naruto sitting beside Hinata. Naruto? What are you doing back here? Hinata was confused. Naruto? Hokage-sama? Tsunade had to think fast and she knew it. It had been her order that nobody was to know about Naruto's difficulties. The fox Hinata, I named it Naruto. Its personality seemed to match to me, and I missed that loudmouth. Naruto rolled his eyes. Tsunade was patting herself on the back mentally, and Hinata had another question. Speaking of N. Naruto-kun Tsunade-sama, you. Have your permission to go in versus visit him? Naruto was shocked and Tsunade was amused. I'm afraid Hinata-chan, that Naruto was removed from the hospital. He is assumed to be out training with Jiraiya again. Now I just need to tell Jiraiya that. However, I do have a minor problem you could help me with. Hinata had barely heard her. And what is that, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade was wearing an evil grin that made Naruto nervous. You see, at the first opportunity Naruto had left his hospital room, Tsunade had gone to check on how safe it would be for Naruto to move back home. And had gotten there a minute too late to stop the torching of Naruto's clothes, when Naruto had skipped out. So Tsunade knew he needed a place to stay for a while. Hinata, be glad and rejoice, I'm about to do you a big favor. I need you to look after Naruto for a while. Noticing Hinata's confused expression, the fox Hinata-chan, the fox. Hinata looked down at Naruto, who was now glaring daggers at Tsunade. Don't know what my father would think, Tsunade-sama. Oh, don't worry, I'll give him a scroll explaining some things and he'll be fine with it. As you wish, Hokage-sama. That was how 20 minutes later Naruto found himself outside of the Hyuga Manor, Tsunade's last words still echoing in his ears. Just before Hinata had walked out the door, Tsunade had walked over to Naruto, looked him in the eyes and said, behave yourself, Naruto-kun. Alright, Naruto-kun, if you can understand me, I want you to keep close for a while. My father doesn't much care for animals. The trouble was that no sooner had Hinata stepped into the house than she was given a summons to her father. Nervously Hinata had tried telling Naruto to stay put, but the servant had orders to bring the fox as well. Hyuga Hiyashi was sitting behind his desk doing some routine paperwork when Hinata came in. Following a short distance behind her was a fox. It would have to be a fox, wouldn't it? Hinata, even if I don't show it I love you. But a fox? That brings back memories of the fourth. He had a pet fox too, but his was special. Hinata, I was informed by the guard that you were bringing an animal into our home. You know my rule on pets. Anno father, but the Hokage gave me this note and asked me to take care of it. Hiyashi took the note from Hinata. The Hokage should know better than to. His voice died away. The note read, Hiyashi, sorry to drop this on you lap all at once, but the fox is actually Uzumaki Naruto. As far as I can tell, he and the Kyuubi fused during his fight with the Uchiha boy. I know that you've been campaigning to get the ban on foxes lifted, and I know you feel a debt toward the fourth. I formally ask you to begin care for his son, the fifth Hokage, Tsunade. P.S. Naruto is rather shy around Hinata, so I wouldn't worry about him and your daughter being alone at night. They are supposed to be betrothed. Anyway, aren't they? Hiyashi sat and contemplated the note for a while. As he did so, he looked over Hinata, and took a long look at Naruto. Does it have a name yet? Hinata jumped a little at her father's voice. Anno, yes father. The fifth Hokage named him Naruto. And you want to keep it? Setting aside the Hokage's orders. Do you want to keep this animal? Hinata thought back to the park, when she had first seen him, the dogs, the Hokage. Looking back, Hinata found some rare courage. Yes, father, I would. Hiyashi leaned back in his chair again, deep in thought. Fine, as you are willing to speak in favor of keeping it on your own, I will make an exception. Hinata's eyes nearly fell out of her head. Her father was making an exception because she was willing to speak up? Agrito father. I'll go get it settled and then. Oh yes, we don't have rooms to spare at the moment. We received a delegation from Stone, and the Sand Children are staying with us until they decide on what to do as far as citizenship. It will have to either stay outside or in your room. Hinata thought for only half a second. It will stay with me then. Oh yes, Hinata. Hinata had been turning to leave. That fox is a half-demon, be glad that it likes you. Also, Naruto. As a demon, I'm sure you can understand me, you will stay for a moment. Hinata was a little surprised to find her new companion wasn't completely what it seemed. But to be honest, she didn't much mind. Hinata went to prepare a spot for the fox to sleep. Naruto was just a little bit worried. Hinata had just been informed that he was a demon. Luckily, her scent said that outside of a little shock she was fine. However, Hiyashi worried him. Relax, Uzumaki. Hiyashi had spoken as soon as Hinata had left the room. Naruto did relax a moment until he realized what Hiyashi had said. He looked up with questioning eyes. That's right, I know that you're Uzumaki Naruto. Your father, the fourth, was a good friend of mine. In fact, after the seal was completed, I wanted to adopt you. You were the son of my friend after all. Unfortunately, I didn't have much control over the household at that time, and the elders denied my request. Naruto was now sitting and staring at Hiyashi. The fourth was my father and Hiyashi wanted to adopt me? You suspected the part about your father, kid. So, Hiyashi was speaking again. I expect you to behave yourself around Hinata, do you understand? I don't tell her, but she's my favorite daughter, she reminds me a lot of her mother. I'll get you a room of your own as soon as I can. I'm assuming that your shape isn't permanent. Kyuubi's wasn't, and I'll get you some clothing. But I need you to promise me something. Naruto raised an eyebrow, an impressive trick considering he was still a fox. I want your word that you'll protect Hinata, and that you will not try anything perverted while in my home. Agree? Naruto was quick to nod yes. Good, then I believe my daughter is coming back. Behave yourself, Naruto. Hinata had walked in just in time to hear the phrase, behave yourself. Why do people keep telling the fox to behave himself? On your father, I'm ready. Alright daughter, leave my sight. Take this fox with you. I expect you to train twice as hard now daughter. You have a pet to earn. Hinata led Naruto back to her room. When they got there, Naruto yawned. Damn, it's been a long day. First the Hokage, then the dogs, then Hinata and Hiyashi. I wonder where I sleep. Remember to think clean thoughts, kid, you're in a woman's room now. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Kyuubi just laughed in the back of his skull. Alright. If you really are a demon, then you should understand me, correct, Kitsune? Naruto looked up into Hinata's eyes and nodded. Wow, he really does understand. Then feel free to make yourself at home. I'm going to get ready for bed. Naruto took the opportunity to walk around the room. He noticed that there was a picture of Hinata's team on the nightstand, and an old picture of himself staring at the clouds. I wonder where she got that. Why not ask her? Said Kyuubi in a sly voice. Naruto turned around to see where Hinata had gone, but after a single glance behind him he whipped back around. If he had been human, his face would have been beet red. What the hell? Damn you, you Baka Kitsune. Damn you and Jiraiya both. Even as Naruto was thinking this, he couldn't help but think about what he had just seen. He thought back quickly, look around, I'm going to get ready for bed. You see, when Naruto had turned around he had seen Hinata almost entirely naked. She had been about to slip a nightgown over her head and well, under the nightgown she wore only panties. What's the matter, kid? Isn't she pleasing to the eye? The soft curves of her body, the lovely grace of her legs, the smooth curve of her breasts. Enough already, the memory is probably permanently engraved into my brain at this point. Damn it, one pervert was bad enough, but now I'm sharing my head with one too. There you are, Naruto. Were you admiring my pictures? Naruto quickly nodded, trying hard not to think at all. Well, those are all pictures of my most precious people. Hinata reached over and picked up the picture of Naruto. This one most of all. Sigh. Where are you, Naruto-kun? Why do you never seem to notice me? You're certainly noticing her now, Kit. Damn it, you baka kitsune. Oh well. You can sleep in that box of rags over there if you like, but... Hinata picked up Naruto and gave him a hug. I would much prefer it if you would cuddle up on top of my bed. For some reason you make me feel comfortable. Naruto was trying hard not to notice the fact that only a thin piece of fabric was now separating him from Hinata-chan's smooth skin. After setting Naruto down, Hinata lay down in bed and pulled the covers up. Good night, Naruto, I'll see you in the morning. After a moment, Naruto jumped up on the bed and curled up against Hinata's back. Good night, Hinata-chan. I'm sorry I didn't notice you sooner. Kyuubi snickered, but didn't want to spoil the moment. If he had wanted to, he probably would have said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I bet you are." When Naruto awoke, he felt especially warm and comfortable. So comfortable in fact, that he didn't want to wake up. He hadn't felt this way in a long time, in fact, he had never felt this comfortable. Snuggling deeper into the comfortable warmth, he was surprised to hear a soft sigh, and to hear someone whisper, "Naruto-kun." It was at that moment that his sleep-clogged brain registered that there were arms wrapped around him. Suddenly it hit him, like a lightning bolt, he was cuddling with Hinata. Oh shit. Using inhuman-like flexibility, he was able to carefully remove himself from Hinata's grip. Once free of her grip, he walked away from the bed. Walking over to the door, he nudged it open. Poking his nose into the hall, he was hit by the distinct odor of fresh cooked meat. Walking out into the hall, he wandered through the halls, until he finally managed to find the food that he had smelled. A small bowl was resting at the base of one of the sakura trees in the Hyuga garden. By this time, his mouth was watering, and his stomach growled in hunger. Walking over to the bowl, he was just about to take a bite when he felt himself being pulled skyward. Looking up, he noticed a simple roped snare around one of his rear limbs. Oh yeah, this is just great. I'm hungry, just waking up, and now I'm stuck in a simple snare trap. Great, just freaking peachy. You should be aware of your surroundings at all times, Kit. Oh, be quiet, you stupid fox. That was when he saw them. Hinata was awoken from her sleep by a sharp yelp coming from outside. Looking around, she noticed that her fox friend was missing. That was when she heard another sharp yelp from outside. Quickly putting on her clothes, she pushed open her door and began to move through the halls toward one of the outer doors. She did not know where she was going, but it was as if an invisible force was pulling her toward where she was meant to go. Exiting the clan dormitory, she entered the garden. It was one of the few beautiful places in the entire compound. Her attention was pulled to a sakura tree about 30 meters away. The sight that she took in was horrifying. Naruto was hanging from the tree via a rope trap wrapped around his right rear leg, and if that was not shocking enough, 3 Hyuga children were apparently using him for a practice dummy. Stop! Hinata shouted at the small band of children. As the children turned, Hinata could feel the tremors of nervousness pass through her body. The leader of the group was her younger sister Hanabi. With her Byakugan active, she looked remarkably like Neji or Hiyashi. The sight terrified Hinata, until she heard a whimper coming from Naruto. No, even if he is a demon, the Jiyukin does major damage to internal organs. I cannot let him die. Without warning, her Byakugan activated. She could see that he was hurt severely, and a single hit could finish him off. What do you want, Hinata? You must stop. Why? It is only a fox. In case you haven't noticed, there is a ban on foxes in Konoha, and until the council removes it, the activity of hunting down and killing foxes will continue if they are stupid enough to wander into Konoha homes. But that is not just any fox. It is Tsunade-sama's. I don't care. The village council overrules the Hokage in matters of safety that are not shinobi related. With that, she turned, and prepared to deliver the final blow. You will stop. Now, father? Hinata was shaken a bit. She hadn't expected her father to become involved in the dispute. No. Hanabi, not another move. Ignoring her father, Hanabi charged forward. This is it. Today I will prove to father that I am the more powerful one. Naruto was troubled. He had not promised that he wouldn't defend himself. In fact, the only reason that he hadn't stopped Hanabi earlier was because he didn't want to estrange or injure any of the family that he was currently living with, but now. Shit, I remember Neji doing this. It hurts like hell, and at the moment I don't know if I can dodge any more of them. The few she hit cut off almost too much circulation already. Attempting to make a snap decision, Naruto looked at Hiyashi. Then did a double take. Hiyashi repeated the gesture and Naruto understood. Acting quickly, Naruto twisted his tail enough to perform the necessary seals. That's it, this fox is dead and Hinata can go and cry again if she wants. Hanabi threw both hands out in front of her to drive chakra spikes into the fox, but instead she hit a tree? What the hell? And why does gravity feel backwards? Then she looked down. Father, you cannot stop me in this. That is a fox and the rules state that we as villagers have the right to get rid of wild animals. Trying his hardest not to break out in laughter, and managing to suppress it to a small smile. I'm afraid that you're mistaken, daughter, I didn't do the Kawarimi. Hinata, I'll kill you next time father lets me fight you. I don't know why he tolerated that beast to begin with. Hanabi's rant was cut suddenly and effectively short by the feel of a blade to her neck. Hinata wasn't even trying to suppress the smirk on her face. I'm afraid you're wrong again, sister. Look down. Hanabi's eyes did drop, and then her mouth did too. Standing below her was Naruto, still in fox form. The hairs on his tail had stiffened and grown an edge, that was what she had felt on her neck. Hanabi was too frightened to say anything. It's Demon. Daddy save me. Please, it's going to kill me. Please daddy. Hinata-chan, I'm so sorry, I doubted you, just don't let it hurt me. Please someone. As Hanabi ranted on, Hiyashi and Hinata approached Naruto. Father, can you make her be silent? Hiyashi gave Hinata a funny look and Hinata knew why immediately. No father. Hinata hung her head. I was caught up in the moment and didn't. Hiyashi cut her off. But of course Hinata, it's rather simple, if you watch you might even pick up how it's done. Less than a day of hanging around with Naruto and your bravery is through the roof. And you don't even know that it's him yet. This could get interesting. For the second time in as many days Hinata was surprised into silence. Father treated me like an equal, like he used to treat me before mother died. Like his child. Perhaps I shouldn't be so shy. Naruto on the other hand had released the kunai tail jutsu a very short time after Hanabi had started screaming. He was currently lying on the ground with his paws pressed over his ears. It was pretty funny, as he appeared to be attempting to press himself into the ground. Damn it, will the two of you quit trying to figure each other out and just shut that kid up? There was a short, bright flash of light, but nobody noticed. Hey, blackmail. It is pretty funny though. The fox with paws over his ears, Hanabi hanging upside down in front of the tree caught in a foot snare, and Hiyashi and Hinata both staring blankly at the scene. With that, Hyuga Neji turned and walked back to his room. Oh crap, Granny Tsunade is going to kill me. Naruto was quickly making his way through the streets of Konoha as quickly as he could while still keeping an eye out for stray dogs. It had only been 2 hours ago that he had woken up next to Hinata, a fact that still made him blush. A short time later he had been captured and effectively tortured by Hinata's sister Hanabi, had escaped, and had continued to follow the instructions that Kyuubi had left in his mind during the night. There are faster ways to travel, kid. Anything that doesn't require a couple of hours to learn? There was a moment of brief silence. I didn't mean right now, kid. Besides, this would be easier to learn as a human before you learn it as a fox. You do need to practice speaking human in fox form as well. I know. Yeesh, you'd think that we were married with how much you harass me. Kit, if I still had any control at all and I would be sitting down for a chat no matter how late you are. You really need show me some respect. I am after all one of the great yokai. Fox, it may not have occurred to you yet. But the people I respect the most, I show the least amount of respect to. You know why? Because I can drop that damn smile around them. Usually I get to replace it with a less plastic one. When I'm around people like you, Tsunade Ba-chan, and Yuro Senin, I don't have to hide the hurt as much, because you three won't take it as weakness. Again Kyuubi was silent for a few moments. That won't be necessary anymore, Kit. Naruto stopped dead. What do you mean? Think, Kit, your appearance has changed remarkably, as has your power and stamina. If you want you can pick up a new name entirely, or keep the surname Uzumaki and get a modicum of control over your life. But that's actually not a bad idea. No kidding, Kit. Now get your fuzzy little ass in gear, you're late, remember? Not sparing any concentration for talking, Naruto doubled his speed. Moments later he arrived at the Hokage Tower. Running up the stairs he was met by a closed door. This could get tricky. The door is closed and there are 2 Anbu guards. If they see me they'll attack, if they don't I have to wait for someone to show up. Let them see you. Nani? Do I seem suicidal to you? Baka, either the old lady has left instructions to let you in, or else the noise those 2 make chasing you will wake her up. Okay. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked out in front of the Anbu. I took a moment for them to notice him, but when they did, one drew a kunai. Naruto tensed, ready to jump when the other guards stopped the first. This is the fox that the Hokage warned us about. Let him in. How do you know that this is the right fox? The chakra level. Let yourself feel it. That fox's chakra is more than triple what most wild animals have unless they are summons. Putting back his kunai, the second nodded. You're right. Pushing open the door he said. Go on in. Just don't expect me to wake her for you. He rubbed the side of his face. That's one mistake I'm not making again. Hyuga Hinata had mixed feelings. When she had woken to the sound of her new pet being hurt, she had first been enraged, and then frightened when she saw that her sister was the one leading the assault. That had changed when her father had shown up and ordered Hanabi to leave Naruto alone. Surprisingly, Hanabi had ignored the direct order and defied her father. Naruto had escaped, and then when a scared Hanabi had found out that Hinata's pet was a demon, she had started screaming. While Heishi had instructed Hinata on the basics of silence jutsus, Naruto had slipped away. It wasn't until 10 minutes ago that Hinata and Heishi had realized that Naruto was gone. Since then, Hinata had been looking for her new friend all over town. Where did you go, Naruto? Don't tell me you've disappeared like your namesake. A single tear trickled down Hinata's face. I don't think I could stand losing my Naruto-kun twice. In her search, Hinata hadn't realized that someone had been calling her name for a few moments now. Hinata-chan? Hello? Looking up, Hinata saw Sakura standing in front of her. Ano, Sakura-chan. Have you seen Naruto? He disappeared. Sakura gave her a funny look. Poor girl, if I didn't intend to kill that dobe I'd probably explain to her that he's out training with that perverted frog guy. No, she doesn't know that the perverted frog guy is actually one of the Sennin. Hinata, are you feeling alright? Naruto isn't in the city anymore. Blushing, Hinata realized her mistake. Ano. Not that N. Naruto-kun. I'm taking care of Hokage-sama's pet fox Naruto. Oh. Sakura brightened a little. That's easy then, he probably went to visit her. Is he very smart? Hinata really didn't feel like telling Sakura that he was a demon fox. After Kyuubi's attack, very few people liked foxes of any kind. It was just lucky for her that Sakura happened to think that they were cute. Why? Yes. Very. Well then, he might have made his way to the Hokage tower. We should go check there. It can't hurt to help her a little. It's not like Naruto himself is around. Grr. I'll get him yet. That murderer won't get away with killing my Sasuke-kun. Come on, let's get going. The 2 of them arrived at the Hokage tower a short time later and stopped at the receptionist counter to ask if the Hokage would be willing to see them. I'm sorry girls, but Hokage-sama is in a meeting. If you are willing to wait, she should be done in a moment. Thanking the lady behind the counter, the 2 kunoichi had barely taken a seat when they heard Tsunade's voice drifting down the hall. I suppose that your reason is good enough, Uzumaki. Just remember, I'm keeping my eye on you. But of course, Hokage-sama. All I want to do is ask a few questions. After all, I am a member of the village, am I not? After all, it's only a name, it's not like I'm any different because of it. True, but dropping the mask is a little worrisome. Are you certain that you can keep your emotions in check? The 2 girls had turned their heads at the sound of Tsunade's voice, and Hinata had gotten a little nervous at the name Uzumaki. Sakura, however, had gone cold inside, and her inner voice had started screaming about revenge. That of course was only until they had seen the young man who was talking with the Hokage. He was dressed in loose-fitting black pants, and wore a black muscle shirt with an orange spiral on the left shoulder. He had a 5 kunai strapped to his right leg, and they were balanced by a shuriken pouch on the left. The belt that he wore to keep his shuriken pouch in place had clips on the right side to hang up to 5 scrolls from. He wore fingerless black gloves, both of which had the same bright orange spiral as his shirt. The most captivating thing about him, however, was his face. Below red hair with white tips and black roots that made it look like his head was on fire were the same piercing eyes as Naruto. The only difference being that they had slits like a cat or a fox. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, this was of course Naruto. He had just spent the last half hour convincing Tsunade to let him use a different name, and to claim to be one of his own relatives. He only stood about a half-inch taller than Sasuke had, but with his toned muscles obvious through his shirt, he was a heartthrob waiting to happen. The best part was, in both the eyes of Sakura, and those kunoichi that were in the waiting room. Where Sasuke had been cold and distant, there was something about this new guy that screamed, warm and friendly. Most of them couldn't have put a specific quality to it. Perhaps it was the small yet warm smile. Or the hint of humor that sparkled in his eyes, as though he knew a joke that he wasn't sharing. My emotions will be the same whether or not I have the mask on. He was of course referring to his plastic smile. This way I will finally be able to let others see what I am feeling without worrying about them taking it as weakness. True. Alright, I agree, just be certain to behave yourself. Shortly after saying this, Tsunade had caught sight of Hinata and Sakura. Seeing Tsunade's face take on a considering look, Naruto also turned to look. When he saw the girls staring at him with their mouths hanging open, he gave them a quick wink before addressing Tsunade. With beauties like these around to keep me out of trouble, that should be no problem. Both Hinata and Sakura looked away and blushed. Seeing this, Tsunade came up with a quick plan of action. Well, just the two girls I was hoping to see. Ladies, may I introduce? Tsunade's voice trailed off. Naruto hadn't told her what name he was going to use. When Tsunade's voice trailed off, Naruto frowned for a moment before realizing the problem. Bowing low, he said, "Excuse my rudeness, I'm Uzumaki Tenkichi. I heard that my cousin Naruto was still living in this city, so I came to pay him a visit. Unfortunately, it appears that he has left to train. Luckily for me, however, your Hokage has agreed that the training I received qualifies me to be a ninja. She invited me to join your village, and I decided that if Naruto likes this place enough to stay, then it's probably good enough for me." Blushing again, Sakura managed to stutter out, "Welcome Tenkichi, I'm Haruno Sakura." Hinata spoke up seconds later. And I'm Hyuga H. Hinata." Naruto frowned for a moment. "Do I look that poorly? Am I frightening?" Ba-chan assured me that I look quite stunning in this new outfit she picked up for me. "Oh, it must be because I claimed to be my own cousin. They're not sure how I'm going to react to the news about Sasuke's attempt on my life." "You can be such a moron, kid. Use your nose. They both find you very attractive in a physical manner, and now that you're not hiding behind your moron mask, you sound rather intelligent as well." "Baka Kitsune, who asked for your opinion? Does it matter? Which do you find more attractive, kid? I'm sure she'd be willing." Naruto blushed a little at that comment. "Oh, be quiet, I should really find some way to shut you up." Kyuubi chuckled a little before flashing what he had seen of Hinata in front of Naruto's eyes. "Honestly, which one? You haven't seen the other unclothed, but I could extrapolate if you lick." "Shut up, you Euro Kitsune." Tsunade had been watching Naruto as he grew increasingly red in the face while staring at the two girls. She had no idea what was running through his head, but figured that he had gotten it, though his thick skull, what they thought of him. "Are you quite certain you're alright, Uzumaki-san? You seem to be a little warm?" Choking, Naruto managed to say. No, I'll be fine. I just need to step out for a moment." Giving him an evil grin, Tsunade turned to the two girls who were still blushing profusely. "Good. Girls, your assignment for the day is to give Mr. Uzumaki a quick tour of our fair city. Oh, and Hinata, your father said you were looking for your pet. Don't bother, he'll be back." "Why? Yes, Hokage-sama. Well, now that that's settled, I'll leave the three of you alone. I will be referring to Naruto as Tenkichi for a little while." With that, Tsunade walked away, leaving the three teens to work things out between them. After a few moments, it was Tenkichi that broke the silence. "So, how about some food?" Sakura face faulted and was confused. "He just gets into town and first thing he wants is food?" thought Sakura and Hinata. "Baka," shouted Sakura. "You just got into town and you want to eat? What kind of person are you? A hungry one that missed breakfast? Now come on, there have got to be some good places to eat here." With an exasperated sigh, Sakura motioned for him to follow her. She guided them to a small out-of-the-way restaurant. Moving toward one of the booths, she and Hinata sat on one side and Naruto sat on the other. Looking over the menu, each selected something to eat and they waited for their server to bring the food. Now will be the perfect time to gather information, was Sakura's thought at that moment. So, Tenkichi, what can you tell me about the Uzumaki clan? Not much. All I know is that Naruto and I are the last of our clan. I was orphaned when the Kyuubi moved through the village that my family lived in. Apparently, the same happened to Naruto when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha. Beyond that, I can't tell you much. A lot has been lost with the deaths of the last two Uzumaki elders. Does your clan have a bloodline limit? Well, you see my eyes? Yes. You see how they are an unnatural blue? Yes. Well, our bloodline limit is the ability to be born with blue eyes. What? Sakura asked confused. Suddenly Tenkichi burst out laughing. Sakura's face was red with anger and embarrassment. Hinata was shocked. He acts just like Naruto. She thought, you made a fool out of me. Well, it was so easy, and besides, from what I hear, you weren't very nice to my relative. I believe that this is good enough retribution for now. Sakura sputtered with rage. Never had anyone insulted her this much. And it was Naruto's relative to boot. Naruto, you had better hope that you never see me ever again, thought Sakura. With that she sat down in her seat and refused to look at Tenkichi. Hinata, however, was just starting to get up the courage to speak to him. Anno, Tenkichi-sama, I would like to know why your hair and eyes are different. Huh, my hair? Oh, that. Well, I don't really know why my hair is this color. It might be because my partner died protecting me and him and I sort of fused into one being. As for the eyes, it has become common among Uzumaki. Anno, why is that? Well, the Uzumaki clan has always had an affinity with foxes. So eventually, we learned to mimic their eyes. I believe that there is a clan here that has the same affinity with dogs. Yeah, the Inuzuka clan. Sakura was the one to respond with a quick grunt-like statement. The conversation continued on like that. Hinata asked questions, Tenkichi answering and asking sometimes, and Sakura never said more than a few words. When their food was brought to them, Sakura was fuming inside. I have listened to everything he has said, and none of it can help me. Not one single word. When they were finished eating, Sakura finally asked another question. Tenkichi, who is this toad guy who is teaching Naruto? Is he strong or something? Who is he? He is Jiraiya of the Legendary Three. Though, from what I have been told, he should be called the pervert of the Legendary Three. You mean that Naruto is being trained by one of the Legendary Three? From what I have been told, yes he is. Shit, perhaps I can persuade Tsunade to train me. Otherwise, there will be almost no way to kill him. Well, if you will excuse me, I have some business to attend to. With that, Sakura left walking toward the Hokage's office. Within minuets, she was standing in front of Tsunade's desk. Tsunade was fast asleep, and to wake her, Sakura slammed her fist on the desk. She was surprised when the roused Hokage threw a fist her way in a punch. She easily dodged it. Huh, Sakura, what are you doing here? Tsunade-sama, I want you to train me. The room was cold and dark. The walls were covered with small metal doors. The only light in the room was streaming down onto a metal examination table. Standing next to it was Shizune, and on the table was the body of Uchiha Sasuke. Shizune was dressed in full medical garb. Next to her was a small interment table which held a full complement of surgical tools. Pressing a small circular button on the side of the table, the room was illuminated by multiple beams of light coming from the many cameras around the room. Autopsy number 0225-2437-6712422347. Examiner Shizune, Medical Specialist Nin, rank Junin. Patient is Uchiha Sasuke, approximate age is 13 years old. Rank is Genin, apparent extreme trauma to upper left torso, at approximate location of victim's heart. Also, trauma extends through patient's chest cavity and through approximate location of heart. I will now begin the autopsy. I will begin with a Y-type incision. And so it went. Shizune went through the rounds, cutting into the body before her. She began to methodically examine every aspect of the body before her. Periodically she would take a tissue sample. She would remove organs, examine, dissect, weigh, and take samples from them. There was one thing that surprised her though. All of the organs had major defects in them. There is no way that any doctor or medic Nin could miss these defects. What the hell is going on? With that, she broke out the bone saw, and begun to cut open the head. After removing the skull, she began to examine the brain. That was when she saw it. Multiple broken blood vessels were scattered around both hemispheres of the brain. That was when she saw it. A small drill-like hole in the back of the skull. Upon further examination, she realized that there was a puncture wound in the brain, and that was where the lesions that covered the brain began. It is almost as if it is Sasuke, however, it is as if someone tried to make him grow faster than his body could handle. Wait, if the DNA matches Sasuke, and it is not Sasuke then. With that, Shizune dashed from the room. Running down the halls and corridors, she burst into Tsunade's office. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade immediately sat up. What, I'm awake. Tsunade-sama. What is it, Shizune? It is about Uchiha Sasuke. What about him? He is still alive, Tsunade-sama. It is about Uchiha Sasuke. What about him? He is still alive, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade sat bolt upright, blinking as her mind whirled furiously. Alive? Tsunade stared at the reports on her desk. But only one in particular held her interests, the full autopsy report on the body of who appeared to be, at least, Uchiha Sasuke. Multiple major defects, fragmented genetic material, lack of decomposition, destroyed brain tissue. All of these things pointed to someone trying to actually synthesize a living organic body, but they were sure that this wasn't Sasuke. Most likely it was Orochimaru who had done this. He had tried to synthesize a new body for Sasuke, but why? Perhaps a body that could last forever. That would be a major step forward toward his ultimate goal. But at the moment she just didn't know. Naruto had been just a little bit put out when Sakura had abruptly left. Now what's gotten into her? Baka, you ticked her off with your bloodline joke. Shit, I have no control over the body and my nose is twitching from the smell of her anger. Is that what that is? Phew, for a moment there I thought that I was going to need to get checked out by the old lady again. Hinata had been watching Tenkichi since Sakura left. It had only been a moment or two, but his eyes had gone distant, as though he were listening to something nobody else could hear. Anno, Tenkichi-san? Still misty-eyed, Naruto answered. Call me Ten, it's far easier to remember. Naruto refocused however at Hinata's next question. Do you like Sakura-san? Naruto's thoughts buzzed. He had liked Sakura. He had also realized before he left looking for Sasuke that she would never return his feelings. Why do you ask Hinata-chan? Hinata-chan? Only Naruto calls me that. Anno Ten-san, you just got all misty-eyed when she left is all. Naruto paused for a moment. Something had been nagging at his mind for a while, something about scent, but he couldn't quite figure out what it was. Snapping back to reality however, he quickly turned the question over in his mind before making an on-the-spot decision. Not particularly, to be honest. She seems kind of bitchy and loud to me. I hear my cousin had a crush on her at one point, but from the sound of things he's given up. Hinata's heart leapt at that comment. For years her one real fear had been that Sakura would see in Naruto what she saw, and then her chance would be lost. On the other hand, this Tenkichi fellow seemed to give off that same intangible aura of strength and kindness that Naruto had. During an idle thought, Hinata wondered exactly how alike the two were. He is rather similar, both have the same easy grace, both have the same bright blue eye color. Naruto is always wearing that stupid grin though, especially when he feels hurt. I wonder if Tenkichi does something similar. It'd be nice to help Naruto out of his shell. But if his cousin has the same inner fire, then I might have to consider changing my. Wait just a moment. I've known this guy for all of what? 10 minutes? For all I know he's a complete ass underneath. His eyes are the same, yes. But has he suffered though everything that Naruto-kun has? Does he really have the same inner strength? The same kindness? Hinata-chan? Hinata snapped back into focus. Are you alright? This time you went misty-eyed. Hinata blushed. At least he seems concerned. Anno, sorry Ten-san, my mind was wandering. Naruto gave her his favorite foxy grin. It's alright. Well, if you're done eating perhaps we should take a walk around town. You could point out the sights to me. Hinata blushed again, but agreed. As Hinata was showing Tenkichi what Konoha had to offer, Tsunade was having meeting of the high-ranking shinobi in the village. Alright people, settle down, we have quite a bit to discuss. The gathered Junin and heads of households quieted down so that the Hokage didn't need to shout. First and foremost, I feel it necessary to inform you all that Konoha is playing host to Yukai Fox. This brought an intense bout of whispering to the assembled villagers. Tsunade waited for them to quiet on her own, they did. And Tsunade was about to speak again when a woman stood up in the back. We already know that Hokage-sama. That damn brat Naruto should have been killed off years ago, get to your point. Tsunade frowned, she had known that Naruto was having a hard time with the villagers, but to hear it voiced so openly was another thing altogether. Even worse in her eyes was the hum of voices that followed, most of which were supporting the woman's statement. Now why do you say that, Mrs.? The woman scowled. Haruno, I'm Haruno Sakura's mother, and I'm telling you right now I'm extremely displeased that the demon was allowed to become a shinobi. I'm even more outraged that he was teamed up with my daughter. Well, Mrs. Haruno, that is neither here nor there, as Naruto is apparently no longer in the city. I am speaking of another fox. There was a gasp from the crowd and the level of noise went up several notches. Tsunade raised her voice so she could be heard above the crowd. This fox has been granted my personal protection, and I will be very disappointed if anything should happen to it. This comment was greeted by an angry buzzing from the gathered villagers. And Tsunade raised her voice even further to be heard over the steady grumble from the people. And to explain why, I would like Hyuga Hiyashi to step forward, please. The crowd went from noisy to silent in a heartbeat. Tsunade had made controversial decisions before, but this was the first time that the Hyuga head had ever supported her. It would be interesting to see what he said. Shikamaru sighed. It was another one of those troublesome days. He and the rest of the Rookie 9 were sitting in one of the larger hospital rooms. He had stopped by the hospital earlier to see how Choji was doing when he had run into Ino. Apparently she had been doing the same thing. Choji and Neji had both woken up yesterday, and both, although hurt, were able to move around a little bit. One thing had led to another, and pretty soon he had been talked into staying around and talking to relieve the boredom that had set in for his two hospitalized friends. Well, kind of anyway. Really, it was Ino that was doing all the talking as the other two asked her questions about how the town had been since they were knocked out. Kiba and Akamaru had walked in trailing the rest of the group, minus Sasuke, Naruto, and Hinata of course. Ten and Lee had shown up shortly thereafter to visit Neji. And from there, well, it was better to just sit in the window and watch the clouds. At least it was until it got quiet. Looking up, Shikamaru was surprised to find everyone looking at him. Shifting uncomfortably under their combined gazes, he said the first thing that came to his mind. What? Everyone blinked for a second before Ino and Sakura launched into a full-out assault. On his eardrums. For crying out loud, Shikamaru. You should really pay attention when people are talking to you. Shikamaru opened his mouth to answer Sakura when Ino spoke up. Do I really have to remind you how I feel about your stupid cloud-watching habits? Again Shikamaru opened his mouth to reply when he was cut off again, this time by Sakura. For once in your life, will you try to focus on the here and now? I mean, for pity's sake, it's bad enough that you do nothing but dream on your own time. This went on for quite some time. First one girl would make a comment, then, when he was about to reply, the other would cut in with a different comment. All in all, it was getting rather funny watching Shikamaru try to get a word in edgewise. Kiba was smirking openly by this time, and even Choji and Neji had small smiles on when a voice spoke up from behind them. Boy, I'm glad I'm not in his shoes. Giggle, it doesn't happen much, Ten-san. Ino and Sakura were too busy yelling to hear, and Shikamaru couldn't get a word in edgewise to mention it, but everyone else turned around to see Hinata and a stranger standing in the doorframe behind them. Their reactions varied, of course. Neji had thrown back up his mask of indifference. Lee was busy cataloging everything about the newcomer in case this was a shinobi he could challenge to a spar. Choji had taken a brief look before turning back to his poor trapped friend. Kiba was glaring daggers at this odd fellow who had dared to show up accompanied by his Hinata-chan. Ten however now had hearts for eyes. Like Lee, she was checking him out, but for her it was another kind of checking out altogether. Walking forward, she was the first to speak as she held out her hand. Hello, I'm Ten. Who are you? Naruto gave her a warm smile before shaking her hand. Uzumaki Tenkichi. Call me Ten. Lee was the next in line, cutting off Ten before she could ask anything else. I am Konoha's beautiful green beast, Rock Lee. You say your name is Uzumaki? Are you related to Uzumaki Naruto? Naruto twisted a finger in his ear before holding out his other hand to Lee. Do you always yell like that? It is an expression of the fires of my youth. Naruto grinned and Lee was surprised to find a grip every bit as firm as his own shaking his hand. Well, I'd be grateful if you could express yourself a little bit more quietly, and yes, I'm Naruto's cousin. Lee had been about to challenge the newcomer to a sparring match when he was violently thrown to the floor by a blonde blur. Hello handsome, purred Ino. Hinata frowned. My name is Yamanaka Ino, what are you doing for the rest of my life? Naruto was taken somewhat aback by the suddenness of her question, and so didn't have time to reply before Ten had shoved Ino out of the way. He's obviously not your type hussy, why don't you go find a Sasuke look-alike? Turning back to the now puzzled Naruto she asked, what are you doing for supper tonight? I know of this quaint little restaurant down by. She never got the chance to finish her sentence before Ino scissored her legs out from under her. Bug off, he's mine. He isn't either. Obviously you're too much of a tart for his taste. You're just jealous because he obviously likes me. You're delusional. You're just plain ugly. Bitch, slap. Whore, slap. Naruto had grown rather bored by this point, and had made a clone to watch the two before asking Hinata to introduce him to the rest of the group. Hinata had of course complied. It hadn't taken too long to be introduced to Neji, a solemn handshake and a wary look, and Choji, a quick handshake and a request to move aside because he was blocking the fight. Sakura had just shot him a glare before turning back to the fighting Kunoichi. Kiba, who had stared at his hand and then ignored him, and Shino, who remained his impassive self, but deigned to nod, everyone was now watching the two girls as they had escalated their fight into a tug-of-war using the clone as the rope. Naruto on the other hand had walked over to where Shikamaru was laying with his eyes shut. Quite a pair. Shikamaru sighed. Quite a pair indeed. Naruto looked amused for a moment before sticking out his hand. Uzumaki Tenkichi. Shikamaru cracked open an eye. So I heard. Nara Shikamaru. Konoha's genius. So they say. Naruto nodded his head in the direction of his clone, which now seemed to be mouthing the word, help. Are they always like that? Afraid so. Although usually Ten is the quiet one and Sakura is the one fighting Ino. Yes, well, she and I didn't get off to a good start. Shikamaru was about to answer when both of the fighting Kunoichi yelled out. Choose. Naruto looked up to see the two staring at his clone expectantly. The crowd had calmed considerably after Heishi's explanation of the fox saving his daughter, and how it was now her guardian. There were still a few protesters, but for the most part the townspeople were willing to take Heishi's word that it was safe. Tsunade, glad that her little problem had been cleared up, continued where she left off. In lieu of the fact that we now have a yokai living among us, I am forced to remove the right to hunt foxes. Again there was a brief murmur of discontent, but Tsunade quelled it by adding, we wouldn't want a fox mad at us again, would we? Now, on to the second piece of business. The supposed body of Uchiha Sasuke. There was a murmur again, but Tsunade continued as though she didn't hear it. It has come to light that the body recovered by the Genin team is not in fact Uchiha Sasuke, but rather a poor clone of him. Again Tsunade had to raise her voice to be heard above the crowd. We do not at this time know the location of the real Uchiha Sasuke, nor even if he still lives, but we do know that whatever was recovered was not, I repeat, not him. Nearly unheard above the din of the crowd, Tsunade was now shouting. We hope to have more information for you at a later date. As of now, however, know that we are working on the problem. Be assured that we are doing everything in our power to determine the truth. Thank you all, you're dismissed. Pulling aside Hiyashi, Tsunade asked him to wait behind a moment. Waving the elders away and promising a family meeting shortly, Hiyashi waited for the crowd to clear. Yes, Tsunade-sama, how are Naruto and Hinata doing? Hiyashi smiled slightly. They are doing fine. In fact, even as a fox, Uzumaki Naruto is having a great effect on my daughter's mental health. He has her speaking up without stuttering, and Hinata is even acting like the heir she is supposed to be. Hiyashi trailed off before asking, why? I'm assuming that you want to know why I ask rather than why I dropped him on you. I know why you gave him to me. Your letter explained quite well. I want to know why you ask. Tsunade sighed. Because it's about to become a little more complicated. Hiyashi simply quirked an eyebrow. Naruto is back in his human form, but he doesn't want anyone to know that it's him. And how does this affect me? Hinata's pet is going to disappear while he's around. Naruto decided to call himself Tenkichi. He's pretending to be his own cousin, I was hoping that you could find a spare room for him. Hiyashi gave another small smile. Actually, you just made my job easier. This time it was Tsunade's turn to quirk an eyebrow. I've been trying to come up with a reasonable excuse for locking a room for his use. This will do quite nicely. Everyone knows that I'm always hosting out-of-town nens. I've simply extended the courtesy to Naruto's Kusan until Naruto himself returns. Have you told him yet? Tsunade frowned a little. Of course not. I needed to make certain you were okay with this first. Just then a runner with the trademark Hyuga eyes came running in. Hiyashi-sama, the elders are beginning to grow impatient. Hiyashi sighed. I request you send my daughter and this young man to me when you find them, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade bit back a grin at the exasperation she could see in his eyes. Of course, Hyuga-sama, the moment I find them. With that, Hiyashi turned and strode out of the room. Sighing, Tsunade returned to her tower to scare out Naruto using the third's crystal ball. The two kunoichi glared daggers at each other over the clone's head. It had been a silent struggle even while they waited for a reply. A minute of the tug-of-war ticked past before they both yelled out. Well, it was just then that Tsunade appeared in the doorway. Will you two kindly keep it down? This is a hospital after all. Neither of the kunoichi said a word, but both glared at each other again, and neither let go. Tsunade scanned the room for a moment before her eyes fell on Naruto leaning against a wall over by a prone Shikamaru. She stepped forward only to run into the clone. You to stop that. Let go this instant. Again both glared at each other, neither wanting to be the one to relinquish her grip. Tsunade waited all of 3 seconds before getting impatient. Oh, for heaven's sake. So saying, Tsunade wrapped the clone on the top of its head, and both girls tumbled backward as it vanished. Uzumaki Tenkichi, Hyuga Hinata. You will both come with me. On the floor, Ten and Ino both cast a bewildered look to the back of the room where Tsunade appeared to be looking, and both were a little abashed when they realized that Tenkichi had been looking on with amusement as they played tug-of-war with a clone. As you command, Tsunade-sama, said Naruto. Come on, Hinata-san, it just doesn't do to keep a cage waiting. See ya around, everyone. With that, Naruto walked out of the room followed by a blushing Hinata. The sun rose to find Hinata snuggled into her bed. It also revealed a golden fox, lying curled up right next to the Hyuga girl. It had been roughly a week since he had taken up residence in the Hyuga household, and he loved every minute of it. As soon as Tsunade had told them, both had been escorted to the Hyuga manor. Once there, Hiyashi had explained the situation to the two of them. Hinata had only been told that Tenkichi was being given the room across from hers. Naruto, on the other hand, had been asked to stay behind. Once Hinata was gone, Hiyashi had laid some ground rules. Naruto was allowed to continue sleeping in Hinata's room so she didn't wonder where her fox went. But Naruto was expected to attend meals as a human. He was also to join in on Hinata's lessons with her father, but he was not allowed to interfere. Outside of that, all that had been required was that he renew his promise that he, Naruto, would not to attempt anything perverted, no matter what form he was in. With 3 meals a day, a warm bed, and for the most part, friendly people, Naruto had felt no compunction to disobey any of the rules. In fact, they had developed a routine of sorts. Hinata and he would rise about 7 a.m. and let out Naruto, which would be followed by bathing, and then breakfast with Tenkichi. After that, the two of them would train with Hiyashi for about an hour before Tenkichi would leave and Naruto would show up from whatever he did in the mornings. For about another hour, Hinata would attempt to teach Naruto to speak. Naruto was giving it his all, and, after 3 days of hard work, he was finally able to speak while in his fox form. It was somewhat difficult, however, so he didn't do it much. Today, however, was special. After 2 weeks off, Hinata was returning to her genin team. And Naruto planned to be there for her. He would do his best to protect her. As soon as Hinata began to stir, he was up and nudging her awake. She opened her eyes and smiled at him. Reaching out, she scratched behind his right ear. He instantly melted, half laying on the floor, his right hind leg twitching. He couldn't believe that amount of pleasure that could be derived from such a small act. When Hinata finally stopped, Naruto jumped toward the door. Hinata, knowing that he wanted out, opened the door, releasing the terror that was Naruto upon the Hyuga compound. Grabbing her normal cloths, she slid the door closed behind her. Walking down the hall, she quickly arrived at the door to her bathing room. Stepping inside, she slid the door close. After a quick bath, "No, I am not going into details, you perverts." She slid on her normal cloths, blue shorts, her dark-colored shirt with the fishnet versus cut in the front, and after that her heavy jacket. Taking the shortest path she could to the dining hall, she was not surprised to see Tenkichi waiting for her. As she ate her meal, Tenkichi sat next to her, eating and chatting about his plans for the day. When that was done, Tenkichi slipped away and Naruto showed up. Today, Hinata was returning to active duty, as were all available Konoha nins. Naruto enjoyed the walk to the training grounds. It was just he and Hinata. Just how he liked it, no one pestering him, chasing him, throwing rocks, or any other things. Arriving a little early, they both curled up under a tree. Hinata was sitting with her back up against the trunk and Naruto lying with his head in her lap while she gently scratched behind his ears when Kurenai arrived with Kiba and Shino. She was shocked to say the least. Here was Hinata sitting with Fox in her lap, and scratching its head. However, the calm was interrupted by a shout from Kiba. "Hinata, stay very still, I'll kill it before it hurts you." Everyone but Hinata was surprised when the fox replied back, "Buzz off, bozo." Kiba's intelligent response to the statement was, "Huh? Kiba-kun, please, could you keep your voice down? It hurts his ears." With that, Hinata went back to scratching Naruto's head. Kiba was in shock. What in the world? Hinata actually spoke without stuttering? And she's protecting a fox? What the hell is going on? While thinking, Kiba's instincts began to rise from the back of his mind. He suddenly began to growl, and, with a sudden movement that no one saw, Kiba pulled Naruto off of Hinata and threw him a good 10 feet away. Naruto was, to say the least, pissed. Rolling to his paws, Naruto growled back at Kiba. Both of them could understand Akamaru's growls, and feel the anger radiating off of him. "What do you noisy mutts want?" Naruto asked. "You're hide decorating the Inuzuka wall," growled Akamaru. "Akamaru, let me handle him," Kiba sneered. Then, forming the tiger seal, he activated his beast affect. Ninpo. Quadruped no jutsu. Instantly, his chakra began to pour out of him. Within moments, he was down on all 4 limbs. Akamaru jumped on his back, and he shouted, "Beast effect Ninpo. Beast human Bunshin." Smoke rose around both of them, and when it cleared, Akamaru was standing next to a much larger white dog, that looked almost like a wolf. "You had better back down if you know what's good for you, fox." Kiba growled at Naruto. "Sorry, buddy, but I don't back down. What's your name, so I can have it seared into your pelt when we hand it from our wall?" "I am Naruto, son of the great demon fox Hikari, the silver fox of the far north, and child of Kyuubi, the great 9-tailed fox demon. The strongest of the yokai." Naruto howled back. When the name Kyuubi left Naruto's lips, Kiba almost went into shock. "No way, this little fox is the descendant of the Kyuubi. He is just trying to scare me. I'll show him. When I'm done with him, he will know his place, and he will know that Hinata is mine." Kiba's roar caused everyone but Naruto and Akamaru to jump nearly out of their skin. "Hinata is mine, you damn fox." With that, Kiba charged toward Naruto. Just as Kurenai was about to jump in, she felt a hand grab a hold of her shoulder. Turning, she Hinata standing behind her with a small smile. "Just wait, sensei, father said that you were told about Naruto-kun. He'll prove himself in a moment." Seeing the look on Kurenai's face, Hinata quickly added, "The fox Kurenai sensei, his name in Naruto." Nodding, Kurenai relaxed a little. Not enough that she couldn't jump in if necessary, but defiantly more relaxed than she had been. Kiba on the other hand was getting pissed. While the two girls had been talking, the damn fox had easily evaded every attack he had thrown at it. Switching back to his quadruped no jutsu, Kiba growled to Akamaru, "Let's get him, boy." Akamaru readied himself to spring. "Ready? Now, Gatsuga." Naruto had of course figured out exactly what the two of them were doing. He had fought them before after all. As the two spinning blurs homed in on him, Naruto reached inside and brought up a bit more chakra. Both Kiba and Akamaru were blown backward by the wave of white that flowed outward from the fox's body. Blinking, Kiba looked over only to see that, shit, that damn fox grew more tails. Maybe he is the son of Kyuubi. Indeed, Naruto had grown more tails. Where before he had looked like a fairly regular fox, goldish with a big bushy tail, he was now nearly pure white with the black tips on his 3 tails. Only his eyes had stayed the same. That's interesting. Hey fox. What do you want, kid? When we were practicing earlier I was a black fox with 2 silver-tipped tails, right? Yes, why? Because I have 3 now, and I think I turned white. And why do you say that, kid? 'Cause I can also see nearly 360 degrees too. Kiba had been watching the fox with some trepidation. Before he had assumed that it had been an idle boast when it claimed to be a child of Kyuubi, but now he wasn't so sure. Well, you're progressing much faster than I thought. What's that supposed to mean? Usually you don't make it to 3 until you need to keep an eye on multiple opponents. Then this is no surprise at all. I do have to keep an eye on a pair. One in front, one behind. Well, finish your fight, we'll talk about this later. Growling out in passive human, Naruto spoke so everyone could hear. Stop this new. We are supposed to be on the Same team. Even Hinata was impressed. She had seen him practicing before, so she knew that he could have more than 1 tail, but from the surprise she had seen on his face he wasn't expecting 3 either. Currently Kiba and Akamaru were just staring. It was up to her to stop this. Hinata opened her mouth and, Kiba, Akamaru, that's enough. Naruto, come here. Apparently Kurenai had sensed Hinata's reluctance, because she had decided that it was time to step in. With a grimace Kiba returned to normal, and Akamaru lost the red tint in his fur. Naruto was also grimacing a little bit. This was not the first impression that he had wanted to make. Suppressing his chakra again, Naruto shrank back to his golden one-tailed appearance. Sorry Kurenai SSSSAN. Kurenai had luckily gotten past her shock already. Otherwise having a Yukai fox talking to her might have been a trifle unnerving. No worries Naruto-san, you were just defending yourself. But you too. Kurenai turned to glare at Kiba and Akamaru. What were you thinking? You've been told that the law permitting foxes to be hunted has been repealed. I'm fairly certain that I even warned you that he might be joining us. Kiba hung his head in shame as he shot a dark look at Naruto. Sorry sensei, I guess that I let instinct take over at a poor moment. Naruto had seen the look that Kiba shot him, but he chose to ignore it, and instead walked over to sit next to Hinata. Kurenai sighed as well. She had known for quite some time that Kiba had a crush on his teammate. Just, try to control yourself a little better next time, alright Kiba-san? Of course sensei. Just wait you damn fox. I'll get you for beating me in front of Hinata-chan. Well, now since that's settled, why don't we start off with a little sparring? Kiba, you and Akamaru face off against Shino. Hinata, I'd like to have a word with you and Naruto. Glaring daggers at Naruto, Kiba got into his fighting stance as Shino quirked an eyebrow. For a second Akamaru was torn. Yes, it was true the fox had stolen his favorite resting spot, but it wasn't as though this was unknown. Everyone knew that when you got beat the stronger male was the pack leader, but then why was Kiba so angry? Shaking away his thoughts, Akamaru prepared to fight Bug Boy. Leading the other two a short distance away from the rest of the group, Kurenai turned to Naruto. Is this going to be a daily occurrence? Naruto whined and looked at Hinata, who quickly came to his rescue. He doesn't speak too well yet, Kurenai-sensei. Kurenai sighed. It may have been true, but it was an awfully convenient excuse. She was about to change topics when Naruto spoke up again. His face clearly showed strain as he struggled to speak understandably. I hope not, Kurenai-san. But he did star RRT it. Kurenai sighed. Thank you Naruto, you don't need to answer me in English if you don't think you can. Now I have a couple of quick questions. First, do you have more than the 3 tails? Naruto paused in thought for a moment. Yes, but I can only axe. Ass. Naruto descended to yips and growls for a moment before finishing, USSSSE. 3. Kurenai nodded to herself for a moment. I'm going to ask that you not change while we practice, Naruto-san. I feel that it would disrupt our training. With a pained look, Naruto concentrated on answering. Luckily for him, Kurenai had taken pity on him. Just nod or shake your head, Naruto, it's far easier. Giving her a grateful look, Naruto nodded his head. Good. Hinata, I want you and Naruto to take over from Kiba and Akamaru in the fight. I need to be certain that your training hasn't slipped. Walking back, Kurenai had Shino withdraw his bugs from his 2 captive teammates and prepare for another match. Ready? Begin. Immediately Shino had sent out a swarm of chakra-eating bugs in an attempt to drain Naruto's strength. He had already seen it in action, and he didn't really want to face a three-tailed demon if he didn't have to. He was surprised however when Fox vanished leaving behind a log. Even more surprising was the fact that it had also left behind the female he had planted on it during its fight with Kiba. Ordering his bugs to spread out and find the fox, Shino turned his attention back to Hinata. They had fought before, and Shino knew how to beat her. He just had to wait for her to lose confidence in herself and make a mistake. Barring that, he could slip bugs in one at a time to slowly drain her chakra, or, if she preformed Kaden, have them close in to attack the moment she stopped spinning. He was surprised therefore to see her grin and slip into the Hyuga gentle fist style. "You are in range of my hake." Shino was shocked. 2 weeks ago she would never have bothered to attempt this attack. She knew after all that his bugs would just form a wall too. Suddenly it occurred to him that he had spread his bug out too much looking for the fox. There just weren't enough to protect him. Quickly he tried recalling them, it was too late though. Hinata was all ready to close. 2 hands, 4 hands, 8, 16, 32, 64 hands. Shino was thrown backward against the tree behind him. Luckily Hinata had only aimed for his extremities, it was practice after all. Calling up his bugs to heal him, Shino was shocked again to feel a sharp edge to his throat. Slowly raising his hands, Shino followed the blade up to a point where it became a series of needle-sharp spikes, and then a voice whispered in his ear. "Give uup little human. You're a little friend's errand coming to save you." Turning his head to the right, Shino looked straight into the bright blue eye of the fox that he had just realized was perched on his head. "And why should I do that?" The fox gave him a grin that reminded Shino oddly of the real Naruto before replying. "Look around you." It was then that Shino could see his bugs flying here and there, but apparently unable to find him. He was certainly shocked. "What did you do?" he whispered. "Just keeping them away with chakra," said the fox. "They can't feel you while I'm here. I don't know how to fight without my bugs." Shino was shocked. A short time ago he had been content in knowing that his bugs could protect him from anything, now he was nearly defenseless. I give up." With a parting wink, Naruto hopped down off Shino's head and sauntered back to a grinning Hinata. The moment that he left, Shino's bugs became aware of him, and they all flew back wondering where he had gone to. Kiba of course was in shock. He was about to ask what just happened when both he and Naruto heard Akamaru speak up again. "Hey, Naruto-sama." Our foxy friend Naruto quirked a mental eyebrow. "He's being nice to me?" "Yes, Akamaru? What is it? How did you do that?" Naruto thought for half a moment. "How did I do what, Akamaru?" "That thing with your scent. If you had stayed much longer you would have had his bugs all set to attack him." "Not quite, aka-san, they would have been close enough to catch his scent by then, but by making his pheromone sense with my own I effectively cut the hive off from the queen." Akamaru took a moment to absorb all this new information. Kiba was just staring open-mouthed at Naruto. He had been standing shell-shocked since Akamaru had begun addressing Naruto as a pack leader. Naruto was defiantly amused. His whole body language seemed to indicate that he was just a fraction from rolling on the ground laughing. "I guess that I know who the brains are in that relationship, and it ain't Kiba." Kiba-san?" asked Hinata. "Are you alright?" Kiba seemed to snap out of whatever thoughts he had been lost in. "Of course, Hinata-chan. It's just that Akamaru and I will need to have a chat, I believe." "Akamaru, what are you doing? This guy is the enemy." Akamaru turned his eyes onto his master. "No, Kiba, this is the pack leader." "Pack leader? I'm the pack leader." Akamaru gave the equivalent of a sigh. It looked like he was trying to shake water off. "You are the pack leader, Kiba-san. Naruto beat us fair and square, so until he leaves, dies, or we defeat him, he makes the decisions." At this simple statement both Kiba and Naruto's mouths dropped. Seeing the look of confusion on his master's face, and thankfully not Naruto's, Akamaru explained his decision. "Think about it. We challenged his right to Hinata-chan, he defeated us. Until we can defeat him she is his. Unless of course she should choose us over him. But most of the alpha women tend to stay with the leader. Although on a rare occasion he refuses them, or they him. I don't think that will be the case though. She obviously thought he would win. Why else would she have left us for so long?" Again both Naruto and Kiba were speechless. Luckily for Naruto, however, he managed to hide his surprise before Akamaru turned around. It really doesn't do for a new leader to look shocked at basics like that. Wow, I thought that it was just a friendly spar. It stopped being that when the human decided to go all out kid. I thought you realized that you were fighting for leadership. You baka fox. You could have warned me or something. At that thought Naruto detected a definite note of amusement from Kyuubi. To what purpose? Would you have fought any different? Well, no, but it would have still been nice to know. Besides, now the vixen of the pack is yours. You, Baka, Arrow, Kitsune. I can see that we are definitely going to need to work on your insults, kid. Naruto was about to reply to this. The entire exchange had only taken about 10 seconds, when Akamaru spoke up again. Will you teach me? Naruto looked slightly shocked and very amused for a moment. I'm the pack leader, am I not? Training my pack to be the best and strongest is in my best interests, right? Akamaru looked relieved. That is what the wise leaders believe. Some of the less intelligent ones think that they need to keep their pack in the worst condition possible, however. That way there is none to oppose them. Well then, let's be glad that I'm not one of those. Kiba-kun? What are they saying? At Hinata's question Kiba went decidedly red. Nothing Hinata-chan. Nothing to worry about anyway. Hinata was about to remark on how red Kiba was turning when Kurenai, with that innate sixth sense of parents and teachers everywhere, decided that it was time to cut in again. Alright everyone. After that rather impressive display of prowess by Hinata and Naruto, I think that we've probably done enough exercising for the day. You're all free to go home, although I do expect you all to keep working on your own time. Meet back here at the same time tomorrow, understood? Everyone chimed in with, yes Kurenai-sensei. Well, everyone except Akamaru, who yipped, and Shino, who was still in too much shock to say anything. Well, come on Naruto-kun. I suppose that father will want to train since we're being let out so early. Shino and Kiba watched their teammate walk away with something akin to shock. Obviously they still weren't used to the new assertive Hinata. Kurenai watched Hinata leave with an emotion akin to pride showing on her face. Good for you, Hinata-chan. I'm glad that you finally found something worth fighting for. Even if it's not the original Naruto, your pet has certainly made a difference in your life. And speaking of your pet, I think that I'm going to need a stiff drink very shortly. Today has already had far too many surprises. Choosing between fighting off another invasion and having to repeat today. I think that I'd almost welcome an invasion. With those final thoughts Kurenai left the two boys staring after their retreating teammate. Along with that, a friend of mine and I are attempting to prove that you can be original and creative by attempting to create something that we hope will become the next big sci-fi thing. And while it is still in the planning stages, we cannot ignore the challenge that is calling us to replace Star Wars and Star Trek, both of which we believe have hit their final breaths with the releases of Episode 3, the final Star Wars movie, and Nemesis, the final Star Trek movie. Well, I am ranting again. So here it is. Chapter 8. Into the Heart of the Flame. Yawning, our foxy friend Naruto stretched, his single golden tail twisting outward before curling up around him. It had been a long couple of days. That was certain. Thankfully things had gotten a little bit better after Naruto and Hinata beat both Shino and Kiba. That first day had been near torment. When Hinata and Naruto came back so early from their team meeting, Hiyashi had assumed that Naruto had showed off, and so he had put the two of them through a very rigorous training. Naruto had not managed to explain yet, but he felt that he better soon, because Hiyashi had not let the new regime drop after the first day. No, he had decided that the two of them must be taught a proper lesson. Then, if that had not been bad enough, Kurenai had shown up the next morning with an obvious hangover, and had started the training session with 5 laps around Konoha. And I mean around the whole thing. Shino had gotten nervous every time Naruto so much as looked at him, and Kiba had seemed determined to ignore him completely. The only good thing about the whole crummy day was the fact that Akamaru had walked over, and the two of them had managed the beginnings of a decent conversation before Kiba got pissed and ordered him to return. And neither of them has let up all bloody week. With a mild groan, Naruto lay his head down on his fluffy tail, and tried to figure a way out of his situation. Distantly in the background he could hear Kyuubi laughing, but Naruto studiously ignored it. And if that wasn't bad enough, Hinata is completely ignoring me during suppers when I'm Tenkichi. What's with her? I've been the perfect gentleman. I speak to her politely, I'm friendly. I know that she's attracted to me, I can smell it for Kami's sake. Yet whenever she talks to me it's strictly in a formal manner. Sigh, could be worse I suppose, at least she doesn't despise me. If I just knew what it is I'm doing wrong. Standing again, Naruto stood and made his way over to Hinata's nightstand. He had been avoiding it. It was a little bit painful to know that Hinata was so shallow that she only cared for his looks. Naruto made certain to keep focused on the pictures when he heard Hinata entering the rooms from the bath. After the first night, he had always been extremely careful to look the other direction while she was changing. After a moment or two, Naruto felt Hinata sit down on the edge of the bed. "What are you looking at, Naruto? My pictures again?" Naruto nodded, and a moment later Hinata flopped down on the bed beside him and sighed. "Is something wrong, Hinata-chan?" Hinata gave Naruto a rather crooked smile. "Not really, Naruto, I'm just a little bit confused at the moment." "It's nothing for you to worry about." Confused, Hinata-chan? About what? Smiling, Hinata reached over and began stroking Naruto's soft golden fur. "You know, Naruto, I think that's what I like about you. You're always willing to listen." Naruto waited a moment. He was slightly confused about the change in subject, but before he could open his mouth to ask again, Hinata cut him off with a question of her own. "Which picture were you looking at?" Naruto hesitated a moment. He had sworn to himself that he wouldn't ask her about the picture of himself, but turning to look at the pictures again, Naruto nodded his head to the one on the left. "The blonde Hinata-chan. I've never seen him around town." "Well, I am not really breaking my promise. I did not ask her, and she did ask me." Sighing again, Hinata reached down and picked up the picture that Naruto had nodded to. "This Naruto is your namesake. This is a picture of the guy the Tsunade-sama named you after." "Why?" Naruto trailed off. He had almost asked her why she had a picture of him, but as I said before, he had promised himself he wouldn't. Luckily for him, Hinata misinterpreted the question. "Why were you named after him?" "You were named after Naruto-kun because you have his same spark, you have his loyalty, and his compassion. In fact, you are almost exactly what Naruto would probably have been if he were a fox." Naruto swallowed. Hinata had no idea how close to the truth she was. "Funny enough, you also managed to touch on my problem." Now Naruto was really confused. "You have a problem with me being named after him?" Hinata's crystalline peals of laughter caught him completely by surprise. "Of course not, silly." Hinata became much more serious a moment later though. "I have a problem with your namesake." Naruto of course was stunned. Thinking back quickly, Naruto tried to remember if he had ever done anything to make Hinata dislike him. When he came up with a blank, he gave Hinata a puzzled stare. "Then why do you keep a picture of me?" "Oi, kid. You really are dense sometimes, did you know that?" "Shut up, you baka kitsune. I never asked for your opinion." "Yada, yada. Listen up, kid. Brace yourself mentally. Tonight we start a little bit of alternate training." "What do you mean?" "I mean, kid, that every other night from now on you will be doing theory and tactics with me." "I'd make it every night, but your frail human mind can't take the strain." "Hey, you stupid fox. This frail human mind of mine managed to keep you out for over 8 years. You simply weren't intelligent enough to respond, then why you?" "Huh. Just joking, kid, just joking. Anyway, finish your conversation, it's still pretty early in the evening, so we should have a full night ahead of us." "Baka kitsune. Why am I suddenly glad that Hinata and I have tomorrow off?" Getting no reply, Naruto focused back into the bedroom just in time to hear Hinata sighing again. She didn't even notice his confused gaze as she stared down at the portrait. "I think that I loved him, Naruto." Once again Naruto was shocked. Love? Me? But I'm so confused now. You see, I watched your namesake for years, I could read him like a book. He always threw up a smiling mask, but behind his eyes I could see the pain. As far as I know, he never mentioned it to anybody, but I could see it. I saw the looks that the villages gave him too. So cold, so full of hate. I always admired him for his strength. Even though I saw past it, I also admired him for the way he could keep a smile on his face no matter how badly he was hurt. She saw? But I was so sure it was hidden. For most people it probably was Kit. If you remember, however, the third saw through it. So did that teacher, that Iruka fellow. But I just don't know anymore. Naruto's head had slowly drifted toward the portrait as he thought, but at that comment it snapped back to Hinata's face. "Ever since I met this Tenkichi fellow, he's Naruto-kun's cousin, you know. Ever since I met him I felt the same attraction that I did toward Naruto-kun. I mean, he has the same eyes. Kind of, the same personality, for the most part. The only real difference is that where Naruto-kun thought that I was some timid little dark girl, Tenkichi is actively trying to get to know me. So, it finally comes out you knew? Of course, most of your friends knew as well. To be honest, it was a little obvious. They knew and they didn't tell me? Of course not, Kit. Hey, it was her secret. If she didn't want to tell you, then all they could do was try to nudge you in the right direction. But I thought that Kiba. Why do you think he was always so antagonistic around you? He knew that she liked you, and he wanted her for himself. Then the fight. He was trying to show his dominance. I see. Am I wrong to feel attracted to him? There was a brief pause while Naruto tried to come up with a decent response. Did you ever tell my namesake how you felt about him? No. No, I didn't. I tried a time or two, but whenever he was around, the compassion in his eyes always flustered me. I knew how badly he was being treated, and yet he was still able to ignore it all to try and help me. That's exactly why I'm so confused. It almost feels disloyal to him to have feelings for his cousin. Once again Naruto had to pause for a couple of deep thoughts. What do I say to her? Well, that depends. Are you attracted to her? Yes. Are you certain? Or do you just think you are because of what she's just confessed to you? I don't know. Now I'm confused too. Well, advise her to try getting to know you better. What? But she thinks that I'm out training. Sigh, Tenkichi. Advise her to get to know Tenkichi better. Ooh, yeah. Also suggest to her that he's hiding something, huh? Why should I do that? Because then she might not take it so hard when she finds out that her pet fox, Tenkichi, and Naruto are all the same person. Ellipsis. Thanks for the advice, Kyuubi-san. Anytime, Kit. Anytime. Hinata-chan? Roused out of her contemplations, Hinata turned to look at her pet. What is it, Naruto? May I make an SS's suggestion? But of course. Why don't you try getting to know this Tenkichi? Then you can SS's see if he's worth liking. Hinata looked shocked for a moment. That's an excellent suggestion, Naruto. Arigato. Before you do though, I think there is something you should know. And what is that, Naruto? He's hiding SS's something. A SSSSERET. Hinata's eyebrow raised a fraction. What makes you think that? I can SS's smell it. Just SSSSO, you know. I have one too. Hinata gave her pet a searching look, and Naruto tried his hardest not to shift his weight. Alright, Naruto. Thank you for telling me. I'm not going to ask what yours is. I'm sure you'll tell me eventually. Thanks for your trust, Hinata-chan. Nodding, Hinata got up and turned off the light before slipping under the blankets. A moment later Naruto curled up against her back, and in a short time both of them drifted off to sleep. Tsunade? Tsunade-sama? It's time to go home, Tsunade-sama. You fell asleep doing your paperwork again. Stretching, Tsunade stood up and looked at the clock across from her desk. 11 o'clock? I'm afraid so, Tsunade-sama. Alright, I'll be right down. As the early morning came upon Konoha, the mist that was normal in the rainy season covered the entire village and surrounding forest. At a remote and relatively isolated and secret entrance to Konoha, a random nin stood guard, making sure that no one who was not allowed to entered the village. Through the mist, the forms of 4 people began to appear. As they grew closer, he immediately became alarmed. Each nin wore the clothing of the Akatsuki, but before he could even begin to raise the alarm, he felt something hit his neck. And everything went dark. As the nins approached, the mist slightly parted to reveal that there were 5 nins, not 4. A moment later, only 3 stood outside the gate, Itachi and Kisame and a third man. The 3 took their time, walking into the village. Not in any rush, they had plenty of time. As they passed the threshold of the gate, the mist began to disperse. The 3 walked down one of the main streets, walking toward the Hokage Tower. It was Kisame that broke the silence. Why are we here again? That damn brat is somewhere else. The reason is simple: if there is a civil war within the village, then it will draw every one of their shinobi back. That includes the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Plus then in the aftermath Orochimaru may try to capitalize and attack while the village is engulfed in chaos. If that happens, then both of them can be captured and taken without much effort. But why 4 of us, Yukio-sama? We can handle both of them. Itachi is stronger than Orochimaru, and that brat relies on chakra. My sword can absorb all of his chakra, and leave him helpless. Both of you are obviously not enough. Last time both of you lost to Jiraiya. That is a pitiful performance at best. But at the time Itachi was drained from using his techniques too much. It isn't like he is Orochimaru or that fucking brat. He can only use his techniques so many times. Plus even I'm not strong enough to take him on. During the entire exchange Itachi was scoffing at the ignorance being displayed. Kisame, you truly are a fool. The only reason that you have any strength at all is because of the 5-tail within your body. And you think Orochimaru is stupid? You and he are the same. The truth behind the matter is that only 4 of the Akatsuki worked in 2-man teams. Itachi and Kisame, and Sasori and Deidara. The only reason for this was because Sasori and Deidara worked abnormally well together, and the only reason he traveled with Kisame was to make sure that he didn't die before they had a chance to absorb the chakra from the 5-tailed shark within him. All of the 5 other members worked alone. The reason for this was simple. They had no regard for the lives of comrades. Because of this, if a comrade was in risk, they didn't care and would still continue to fight, even if it killed the others. The only exception was the one that stood before them at that moment. He was different. Where the others preferred not to involve civilians, he didn't care. When he went into battle, he became a juggernaut that destroyed anything that got in his way, and he was after the tailed Yukai. Itachi shook slightly. Although he was not afraid of Yukio, he made him nervous. That man was better than he was. The pure strength of will and his unique abilities were astounding. Yukio Urashi, the most powerful member of Akatsuki, the only being who had not been broken by his goddess of the moon technique, and had then defeated the god of the sun technique. But the most horrific of his skills was his ability to mimic any technique he had seen. He had no help in this matter. No bloodline limit, no technique, no nothing. Just seeing the attack once was enough. With his sharp mind he was able to mimic the skill, but make it his own. Every time he copied a technique, in truth, he was creating a new more efficient one. He would create one that used but the bare minimum of chakra, but still gave the maximum effect. He was also the only one of them that might be able to fight a Hyuga without getting hurt. His chakra system was much more complex than any other person's that Itachi had ever encountered. Akatsuki Rule 1. Brains plus Strength Position. He was able to rearrange his inner coil system, and even seal off sections of his inner coil system from other parts, or even the entire system. Because of this, using Genjutsu and the Hyuga Gentle Fist on him was near useless. At one point, he had encountered an advanced bloodline that allowed its users to control their entire bone structure at will. After their attack on the Hidden Mist village, he had taken all of their bodies and frozen them, only to thaw them out and study them. After months of study, he had created his own technique that allowed him to mimic their incredible abilities. Akatsuki Rule 2. The smartest and strongest rule, and are always right. When he went into battle, he used all excess chakra to increase his muscle density and mass. He would make his bones far denser than was normally possible, and he would grow a sort of hyper-dense bone armor just under his skin. His only weak spot was between his first and second vertebra of his spine. The spot itself was only slightly bigger than a Sebon throwing needle, and it was still hard to pierce that area. However, there was one who capitalized on this weakness. The second of Akatsuki had crafted a small injector out of diamond. Whenever he got out of control, she was always ready to bury it into his back, her own special mixture of poisons ready to be injected at a moment's notice. Even he wasn't strong enough to survive her specially crafted mixture of toxins. One drop of which could kill an elephant before it even felt the prick of the needle. Akatsuki Rule 3. When in doubt see Rules 1 and 2. A sudden presence next to Itachi alerted him to the presence of the third Akatsuki, Taguchi Azuma. The master of mind control himself had come on this mission. Because his abilities he would be able to make the entire village turn against the boy. But the biggest thing was the fact that he could guarantee them safe passage in Konoha. His abilities were enough to drive you insane. Literally. He was able to cast a genjutsu on anyone who he got close enough to. When he was close he would flow a portion of his chakra into the person's body, then the person would follow his orders, no matter their location. They could be miles apart and he could still control them. It took a truly strong mind to break his hold on you. Itachi himself had broken out, if just barely. The only ones that he could not control were children. Those who had, as Rock Lee would call it, the passion of youth. They didn't have completely formed brains yet, and as such, their minds shifted too rapidly to catch completely. This made them hard to put under his particular brand of genjutsu. Akatsuki Rule 4. The best way to gain position is to kill off someone above you. This is only permitted when not on missions. These two were a truly terrifying sight. However, the more terrifying fact was that neither could beat the other. They were a deadlocked match. The fact was that Azuma had perfected his bloodline genjutsu, and his defensive abilities, barriers. No one could break the barriers as fast as he was able to cast them forth from his body. At the same time, Yukio could seal off his chakra network and prevent Azuma from getting any chakra into his system, or manipulating his own chakra. I don't care what your excuses or was. It is unacceptable performance. If you want something like the power of a yokai, you must be worthy of that power. You must work hard and earn that power. No one is destined to just be given power. You must first prove yourself to the very gods themselves. You must have power that can destroy anyone in your way. Only then will the gods gift you with the power that you deserve. Azuma's voice cut through the morning air, asking an already answered question. Still quoting old religious scriptures, Yukio? Just because you want to believe that there are no gods does not mean that the rest of us are as uncivilized as you. You just don't want to give power to anyone but yourself. You don't want to believe that the gods are all around and that they do nothing to help you. They are above us, greater and stronger. They see all that is, was and will be, and as such have a greater responsibility than any. And here you have it, folks. The greatest mass murderer in the known world believes that the gods are out there. Therefore it must be true. And with that, both stopped talking, neither Yukio nor Azuma wanting to disturb the peace that had settled over the small group for fear of a fight breaking out and exposing their location within the village. As the morning mist cleared, the four Akatsuki disappeared with it, leaving behind nothing but a whisper in the air as a statement to their former presence. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade awoke to someone shouting her name. Climbing out of her bed, she slipped on a robe before opening the door to her room, only to be faced with a very tired-looking Shizune. Shizune, what is going on? Tsunade-sama, something has happened. What is it, Shizune? You know I like things to be given to me as bluntly as possible. Tsunade-sama, early this morning, nearly half of the villagers left their homes and moved en masse to the abandoned Uchiha sector of the city. What? Just what do they think they're doing? That is the problem, Tsunade-sama. They are demanding that Jiraiya-sama return with Naruto so that he can be properly punished. They are blaming him for Uchiha Sasuke's betrayal and death. As per your instructions, no one has been informed of that the body discovered was not actually his. Tsunade's face visibly paled, and her voice almost cracked when she asked the question on her mind. Have they broken the law set by the third? No, Tsunade-sama, they have not, yet. What do you mean by yet? Shizune was almost afraid to answer. They said that if Naruto is not delivered within a reasonable amount of time, then they will have to break the law so that their children can be protected. You mean to tell me that they intend to tell their children so that when the children see Naruto they will get away and alert any shinobi? Yes, Tsunade-sama. Pushing past Shizune, Tsunade made her way down the hall and into her dressing room. Walking out a few minuets later, dressed in her normal attire, she said, Shizune, get Kakashi, Iruka, Jiraiya, Hiyashi, and our little fox friend, and tell them to report to my office immediately. This is a seriously bad situation. Tsunade-sama, why are you still here, Shizune? Naruto has gone with the Hyuga girl on that mission to the capital. Tsunade stopped a moment and thought. Perhaps that is for the best. Alright, get me the rest of them though. Yes, Hokage-sama, Kurenai-sensei. How long is this going to take? No more than a day or two, Kiba. Kiba sighed for the 10th time that morning. What an annoyance. Normally missions were fun because he got the chance to show off for Hinata, but not anymore, now Hinata had. The sudden growling behind him caused Kiba to react by pulling out a couple of kunai and whirling around, only to realize that Akamaru wasn't growling at an enemy, but was instead growling at Hinata's fox as the two of them wrestled on the ground. Sighing, Kiba turned back around. This is just great. Now I'm not only hot and annoyed, but I'm lonely too. Man, I hate escort missions. The shinobi had been keeping pace with a slow-moving carriage for the better part of a day now. The worst part was that they had no idea at all whom they were guarding. Every so often a balding, sweating man would call a halt and climb his ponderous mass out of the carriage long enough to grab a bottled water, or perhaps a bit of food, and then, after climbing back inside, He would tell the driver to try to make the ride smoother before retreating back out of the sun. Kiba's ears pricked forward a little as he caught raised voices inside. Just some of the brat's beasts. Nothing to worry Abu. It disturb, I'll take care of. As you wish. Kiba sighed again at the sounds of the two animals playing behind him. Whatever it was that their client had said, the pudgy old man did nothing more than glare at the two animals as he came out. Well, that and give Kiba a sharp look and a sniff that clearly indicated what the pompous old fool thought of him. Kiba sighed as a now muddy Akamaru, Naruto had drenched him by pushing him into a puddle, came bouncing up and asked for his customary spot on Kiba's head. Glancing behind him, Kiba couldn't help but notice that the damn fox was already curled around Hinata's shoulders like a scarf. Arrogant little thing. You may have won the last fight, but next time, ooh. Just you wait. Leaning down, Kiba picked Akamaru up and did his best to clean the squirming puppy up. Behind him, Naruto grinned lazily as Akamaru winked at him over Kiba's shoulder. It's good to be the boss. It's not working. Itachi spared only the briefest of looks at Yukio. Before going back to his musings. It had been 2 days since they had initiated their attack, and so far all that had happened was a quarantine on the Uchiha section of the city. Perhaps this new Hokage is more intelligent than we give her credit for. Instead of risking a civil war, or breaking the old fool's laws, she has just declared that everyone in here has a form of mass paranoia. I still don't know how she managed to seal the gates without one of us knowing. Worse yet, by declaring this a quarantined section, everyone who might have heard the shouts of the rabble we snared has moved farther inward until the Hokage gives the all-clear for the area. Taguchi report. Itachi didn't as much as flinch when their master manipulator appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Well, Itachi-san, the people that I tweaked into our little mob here know very little. The best I can get is that our target disappeared about a month and a half ago. Apparently he and your brother got into a little spat. Naruto seems to have disliked the thought of Sasuke joining our old snaky friend Orochimaru. Itachi raised an eyebrow, but didn't answer. He knew Taguchi enough to know that the man loved leaving the best bits for the end. Apparently the target killed and brought back what appeared to be your brother only for it to be revealed as a fake of some kind. I'm guessing that Orochimaru still has the original somewhere. Anyway, the target and that old hermit disappeared a short time later, supposedly to train again. The best part comes next though. 2 weeks after the target leaves, a distant relative of his shows up with a pet fox or something like that. The rumors get a little mixed at this point. Unfortunately, both the fox and the kid seem to be out on a mission somewhere. Itachi waited another moment to see if any more information was forthcoming. When Taguchi remained silent, Itachi took it as a sign that the man was finally finished. Interesting. Kisame, why don't you stop hiding over there and join us? Sharp as ever, Itachi-san, said Kisame as he walked out of the shadows. Briefly, Itachi considered finishing the poor fool off here and now. Shrugging, he decided to wait. Kisame could still be useful, for a while anyway. Turning away from Kisame again, Itachi studied the other two. Taguchi had a relaxed posture. Itachi knew from experience that the man couldn't be using his full blood limit on the people they had caught, or the man would have been slightly strained. Yukio also looked rather relaxed. Kisame, being the fool he was nearly bouncing on his heels. Sighing, Itachi stood. This strategy has failed. I don't know about the three of you, but I think looking into this Kusan of the target might prove to be beneficial. Therefore Kisame and I will be going to take a look at him. We will also be stopping by our dear friend Orochimaru. We must not let little Sasuke forget why he left. There have also been some interesting rumors about certain artifacts gathered by that snake that might be useful to us. Follow, or scatter. It doesn't matter to me. Just don't stay. Somehow that old woman is on to us, and I for one am not going to be locked in if she should decide to set up a barrier. What about the villagers? Itachi turned to look Yukio in the eye. Leave them, or kill them, I don't care. They are unimportant, just leave before the dawn. Having said his bid, Itachi leapt away, followed a moment later by a grinning Kisame. Turning, Taguchi shuddered a little bit. Like Itachi, he had seen the look in Yukio's eyes. Like bloody gimlets. Time to get out of here in case he goes berserk. Soon all that was left was the chirping of crickets. Tsunade sighed as she leaned back in her chair. Well, I think that we may have gotten lucky. For a moment I was worried that the big one was going to create a second massacre in there. Well, now what to do? For a moment a ghost of a smile flittered across Tsunade's face. It's funny, but they've managed to do me a favor. All the people who were most outspoken against Naruto are now gathered in one place, and they are under quarantine, as if reprogramming could get any easier. All I have to do is tell them that it's dementia, and then explain what they really believe. It's almost too good to be true. Tsunade did frown after a moment though. Having listened into the conversation between the missing nin, she couldn't help but realize that Naruto was once again in a rather significant amount of danger. Do I send him a note? Or should I wait for him to get back? Decisions. Naruto, Hinata, Kiba, and Shino were amazed with the capital city of the Fire Country. It was more massive than Konoha, and many of the buildings towered over even the height of the Hokage monument. Bordered by incredibly tall mountains on two sides, and the ocean to its back, it was incredibly well fortified. The only way for any besides the mist to attack was to attack through the pass known as the Devil's Throat. During times of crises, all of the metal that was mined and melted in the city could be poured down the pass, and into ancient lava tubes in the mountainside, effectively turning the pass into a superheated corridor of metallic fire, hence the name. As they approached the city, it was Kiba who broke the silence that resided over the group. Wow, was Kiba's, oh so intelligent, statement. Kurenai-sensei, what are those buildings? Was the question that followed. Those are ancient buildings that predate the formation of the first shinobi villages. Those buildings are all well over 1,000 years old. They were built during a golden age for humanity, and the feats that were achieved during that age have yet to be achieved again. Many of the tools that we use to this day are things created during that age. While you are here, you will see things that are not commonly seen as you get further inland. Turning his head, Naruto spotted something atop the mountainside. It looked to be a strip of flat land that was over a mile long. Deciding to ask about it later, they continued on in relative silence into the city. Walking through the ancient Ginza district within the capital city of the Fire Country, a group of 4 people, wearing traditional wide-rimmed straw hats with hanging silver threads and high-collared black cloaks adorned with red clouds, walked calmly through the crowd. Yukio, Kim, Itachi, and Kisame were headed for one location in particular this night. While it can be said that Akatsuki only possesses 9 true members, it is not to say that there are not many unofficial members, acquaintances of the organization. These acquaintances range from simple farmers to police, governmental officials, and many other persons, some even shinobi. However, most are actually crime bosses, such as the Yakuza. Because of their friendship, the Yakuza provide information as well as comforts to the members, and in return, the Akatsuki take care of certain individuals that might become a problem to their various causes. While some might question how sound the judgment of powerful missing nins doing such menial things as killing for the Yakuza, Yukio himself understood just how important political connections are. Without the Yakuza, information gathering would be much more time-consuming, and would occupy most of the time of every member. However, by letting someone else gather the information, then providing services that all of the Akatsuki enjoy doing, they are allowed to instead collect power artifacts and jutsus, study bloodline limits, and do whatever they wish to do, all the while getting to kill people. All in all, everyone involved is happy with the arrangement. Even as they moved through the crowd, people would unconsciously move out of the way, not necessarily out of fear either. The Akatsuki were common in this area, and most Yakuza respected them for their abilities. And since the Fire Country was one that thought about personal freedom and limitations on police forces, both organizations found it much easier to stage their bases of operation in the capital city of the Fire Country. However, it was just as dangerous as it was in other countries. Namely because of the fact that, of all the shinobi countries, the Fire Country were known to be some of the strongest, smartest, and best all-around nins in the known world. Even as vendors tried to get people to buy their items, and bars tried to guide people in, promising good sake and food, Yukio ignored them. Tonight was not a night of pleasure. It was a night for business. Moving to one of the larger pachinko parlors, he walked through the crowd, toward one of the back walls. Once there, he pushed on a section of the wall. Not surprising, the wall swung, revealing itself as a hidden door. The hidden room was not what you would suspect it to be. It was a circular room, with pillars surrounding near the outer wall. In the center, there was a small fire pit. Surrounding this there was a ring of gray tiles, 10 in all, each just big enough for a large man to stand upon. From there, countless bells hung from the ceiling, each of various size, shape, materials, and type. Itachi, being the last through the door, pushed it back to place. Once the door had been shut, Yukio moved across the room toward one particular group of bells. Once reaching the bells, he then reached out, tapping them in a particular order. Even as their chimes echoed around the room, the ring of tiles began to lower, revealing their true purpose as a circular staircase. As the ninth tile lowered, their small group descended the hidden staircase. As they descended, Yukio reached toward a spot on the wall, and pushed one of the stones in. Instantly, the 9 stone pillars slid back up into place one by one. As they descended the staircase, they didn't speak. Eventually, the stairs ended. What lay before them was a dark hallway that seemed to stretch into infinity. Without a word, the group dashed off down the hall. Yukio could never shake just how paranoid this particular Yakuza boss was. Instead of just living in the city, he lived on one of the sheer cliffs. Not only that, but the only way to get inside was to travel down this tunnel that stretched on for miles. After a few minuets of running top speed, the final staircase lay before them, along with multiple Yakuza bodyguards. 2 of the guards escorted them up the staircase, which eventually ended, bringing them into one of the most extravagant places in the city. Though everything seemed like a normal traditional home, once you looked closer, you were proved wrong. What was normally wood, was now made of gold. What would normally be paper, was white crystal. The walls were encrusted with jewels, and so on, and so on. Making their way through the halls, they eventually made their way to the only deck that was not internal. Covered by a genjutsu created by Azuma, no one would suspect a thing until they actually tried to touch the stone, and fell through the illusion. Standing, looking out over the city was the man that they had come to meet, Tanzaku Taguchi, one of the most powerful Yakuza bosses in the Fire Country. Standing about 5 feet 8 inches, Tanzaku Taguchi was not the strongest of men. Upon his frame, there existed only a minimal amount of fat, though for a lack of trying to build up some. Tanzaku Taguchi possessed a very active metabolism. Because of this, he could probably drink pure liquid lard and not gain a pound. Interestingly enough, he and Yukio were distant relations, being from the same bloodline. However, you would have to go back several millennia to find anyone who was even closely related. Where Tanzaku's family line had remained living in the ancient city that the Fire Country's capital was built around and upon, Yukio's family had left, fearing that the devastation that had occurred long ago would befall all who set foot on the hallowed ground. Yukio-san, it is good to see you. The same to you, Tanzaku-san. Why have you returned here, if I may ask? We have returned here for the purpose of information. We need you to try to track down the legendary Sennin Jiraiya of Konoha. Oh, and why would you need me to do that? Being relatively stupid, by the standards of the Akatsuki, Kisame decided to butt in, practically shouting, because he has the Kyuubi brat with him. Oh, I see, you intend to locate them and then attack and capture the Kyuubi. No, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with but a single step. Also, the journey to the mountain top begins with the easy incline, not the sheer cliff. Another piece of advice, a net cast wide catches more fish. We need you to spread your contacts farther. Of the 9, we only know of 4 of the containers. And of these 4, the easy incline shall be our target, the one-tail Shukaku shall be our first target. Until then Itachi had been silent, but now he spoke up again. I leave the 2 of you to do that. Kisame and I will be paying a little visit to Orochimaru. I have an interest in one of his recent acquisitions, and I hear he may have found some useful artifacts from the old world as well. Well, we'll keep you posted. With that, both Itachi and Kisame vanished again. Another day had gone by, leaving Naruto slightly fatigued. The group had watched over the small compound that the client was staying at, until some shinobi from the hidden mist had come and relieved them of their position as bodyguards. After that, Kurenai had taken them and give the group some light training. However, after only an hour of training, they had been informed that they would be attending a festival later that day, and into the night. The festival was one that was held only once every 9 years, and had been held in the city since before the Fire Country had even existed. Known as the Festival of the Rings, it was a ceremony meant to honor great heroes of ancient time. The celebration had been held for the first time, over 3 millennia ago, when a group of priests had stumbled upon an ancient historical archive. However, most of the archives had not survived till the time they were rediscovered. However, there were a few tomes that had survived. One of the greatest groups that had survived were those that were written by a great monk that had spent most of his late life re-scribing a group of ancient tomes, a task that was never completed. The monk had been given one of the greatest titles of his time, J.R.R., a title that to the current day hadn't been deciphered, and was known as J.R.R. Tolkien. His first major detailing had been a tome called The Hobbit, the title of which had been changed from There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale, by Bilbo Baggins. They still didn't know why he had changed the title. The second major tome had come as 3 great volumes, and had kept its original title of Lord of the Rings. Each from there he had detailed the history predating the books. He had then scribed books detailing what different things were, languages, symbols, creatures, places, history, everything. Since the creation of the books, many had tried to locate the great lands that the elves traveled to at the beginning of the Age of Man. However, none had ever returned from the journey. Due either death or unwillingness to return, no one knew. But still, many would try. Because it could only be reached by ship, and only one time of year gave good wind and weather to travelers, those who set off would do so now, during the festival. Many well-wishers would send them off with a grand display of fireworks and other things. And although many of the ships would return, a few always didn't. The festival was a celebration of friendship, courage, and strength of spirit. As Kurenai led the others away, Naruto snuck off. Heading back to the hotel, he made sure he was alone before starting. Over the past few weeks he had begun to practice his transforming abilities, changing from his fox form into his human form and back again. Stopping at certain points between each form, he had discovered a sort of half-yokai, half-human, stage. And now that he had nearly perfected the transformation, he planned on surprising Hinata. Concentrating on changing, he felt his body begin to shift. Fur that covered his body receded, bones changed in size and structure, until he was about halfway to human. Then, he focused on stopping the change. Now, he stood about 5 feet, thin slit-like pupils, surrounded by red eyes, red spiky hair atop his head, and claws on his hands. Retracting his claws back into his hands, he walked over to a panel in the wall that was meant to be used as a secret compartment. Opening it, he pulled out a more traditional-style outfit, and slipping it on, he then exited the room. He wanted to find Hinata as quickly as possible. I think I finally lost them. He went that way. After him. Shit. Okay. The tower should be somewhere in the middle. Sorry Dobi, but you and Sakura are going to have to fend for yourselves for a while. Don't let him escape. I don't know how he managed to make it back across, but I want him found now. Yes, Kabuto-sama. Kabato? But isn't he one of us? Traitor. He must be working with that freaky grass guy. Alright, I don't have time to run, he'll be on me too fast. I think hiding is the only option I have left. Move or you answer to Itachi. Itachi. Perhaps he's more worried than he acts. First I need a spot to rest, after that I may just have to do a little improvising. Tanzaku's voice had an edge to it that demonstrated how frustrated he was. I want him dead, the Yakuza lord shouted. Why should we kill another Yakuza boss for you? Yukio questioned. That man is the current Yakuza boss of most of the Yakuza houses in the Cloud Country, because of his incredible wealth and power, as well as having the rakeage in his pocket. I have not yet been able to expand my resources to encompass the country. If you want me to follow your orders and collect information for you, then I suggest you kill this man. For all we know, the people you are seeking are within the Cloud Country. If that is the case, then I shall see to it personally. The rest of you stay here, I want you to rest and relax. I haven't been able to have any fun lately, so this is all mine. With that, Yukio vanished. No sound, no smoke, nothing. The master assassin was now on the hunt. Naruto was getting a little bit bored. He didn't dare actually walk down the streets in his half-yokai form until later tonight when he had been informed that most of the population of the city would don masks and costumes, and the children would fight a mock battle that was meant to symbolize the final battle between the forces of good and evil. Until then he had to stay out of sight. Sighing, his eyes once again turned to that odd strip of land that seemed unnaturally flat. He could now see it only faintly, as though someone had cast an odd shimmering veil around it. Naruto frowned, wondering if it was just his eyes. He seemed to see things much better as a full fox than he did as a human or a half-breed. Yawning, he stood again. He had heard that no one had actually managed to reach the top of the buildings in years. The melted and twisted remains of the walls, while still strong enough to support the structure, made the interior paths unusable, while the sheer height of the buildings made them impractical to climb on the outside. Naruto himself had gotten nearly halfway up before deciding that it would take too long to go any further and had turned around. Well, perhaps it's time I take a look at the place before it disappears anymore. With that thought and a few well-measured jumps, Naruto was off and running again, just hoping to find something to do. Hinata frowned. It wasn't like her precious Naruto-kun to wander off. Of course, this was a much larger city than he was used to. Perhaps he went back to the rooms so he didn't have to deal with the crowds. Shrugging, she turned to ask Kurenai what she thought, only to find that in her moment of introspection her entire team had disappeared. With a frown, Hinata tried to get her bearings. This is just great. I've been here for half a day, and I'm already lost. With another sigh, Hinata turned and started to retrace her steps, looking for anything familiar. Wow, this is great. Who knew that times used to be so tough? Kiba briefly looked up from the informational history pamphlet that he was paging through. As soon as he had found out about the festival that was to be thrown that night, he had started looking for ways to impress Hinata. He had always known that she had a bit of a weak spot for history. Or so he thought when she started asking about the way the Fourth had defeated Kyuubi years ago. Of course, once he had started, Kiba hadn't managed to put the history book down. He was currently reading about the battle against the fearsome worm Smog, and oddly enough, he found it fascinating. I wonder what kind of yokai this Smog was. He sounds like a dragon, but everyone knows that there is only one dragon family, and they have refused summons for uncountable millennia. Maybe there used to be more of them before the shattering of the world. Hey, there is no way that Hinata won't be impressed now. With that, Kiba was once again lost to the land of hobbits, dragons, wizards, elves and dark lords. Naruto sat on a ledge just below the oddly shimmering veil. He sat with a small frown on his face as the wind ruffled his hair, and absently flickered one of his ears to keep the flies away. He was certain when he started out that the shimmering had just been a trick of the light, or perhaps it was only the fact that his fox eyes were better. But now that he was directly below it, Naruto knew the truth. The odd shelf flickered because it was under the protection of an exceptionally strong shielding jutsu. A jutsu that just happened to disguise it from people's eyes. Flashback. Ouch. What the? Hey, I made it. Baka, what do you want now, furball? Oh sure. Insult the guy who can't fight back. First I save your life, and now I try to help you, and this is how you repay me. Oh yes, very nice. No problem at all. You're very welcome. Faye, last time I helped you. Ungrateful brat. Nani? Wait, Kyuubi-san, I didn't mean to offend you, I just… Naruto's mental apology broke off as Kyuubi's booming voice began laughing at him in the back of his skull. Kid, you really need to learn how to take a joke. It's called bantering, usually a series of sharp witticisms traded between two beings in a sarcastic or near mocking way. Have I mentioned lately that I hate you? You and half the planet, kid, you and half the planet. Now, on to business. As I didn't want to hear your rather clumsy attempts at reason, I have decided to help you out by telling you why that shield behaves the way it does. Ah, I see, you feel like leaving me a series of near riddles whose complexity is only topped by their irrelevance. Better. You don't think that was overboard? No, that was quite a bit better than usual. Thanks, I've been working on it. Now, care to tell me about the shield? Momentarily Naruto got the impression of the fox shrugging at him and giving him a wink before Kyuubi spoke up again. Sure, you are looking at the work of a particularly advanced bloodline. The only reason you can see past it at all is because of the Yuki you absorbed from me. If you were to go completely human, the place would disappear without a trace to your eyes. Ah, makes sense. Anyway, past it? End flashback. That had been nearly a half hour ago, of course. Naruto had gotten another laugh for his questions, but in the end Kyuubi had agreed to try instructing him on how to use his Yuki. It had taken nearly an hour for him to tap into the jutsu enough to hear what was going on behind the shield, and although he protested, Kyuubi had insisted that he was still nowhere near powerful enough to try countering it, or even making a hole big enough to enter though. It turned out that the sound tap was enough, however, as mere moments after completing it Naruto had become privy to the entire discussion that the Akatsuki had with the mob boss. Currently he had dropped his Yuki tap, it to far too much energy to maintain, and was concentrating on what to do with the information he had just gathered. Well, it's only a fight between the local mafia at the moment, right? Right. So outside of being useful, if I should by some miracle be captured, it's really none of my business, right? Right, I suppose. Mentally smiling brightly in a manner reminiscent of Guy. Good. Kyuubi was about to make a rather sharp retort about the simplicity of the human mind when he suddenly felt a panic building inside of Naruto. What is it, kid? What's the matter? How long have we been here? I dunno, couple of hours maybe. Crap. As Naruto took off as fast as he safely could down the mountainside, Kyuubi tried to hold in his laughter at hearing a particularly humorous thought Naruto had about Hinata killing him. Of course, the fact that he stumbled when Kyuubi projected an image of Hinata dressed in almost nothing and giving Naruto a rather sultry wink was enough to make the fox laugh uproariously. Hinata frowned as she surveyed the room. Where did you get off to now, Naruto-kun? She had just spent the last couple of hours walking around town looking at the various things that were for sale, actually just generally lost, and the entire time she had more than half expected her little fox friend to show up as an escort, or a guide. She wouldn't have minded if he knew the way back, but now she had arrived to find her room and clothing untouched, and no sign of Naruto anywhere. She was at a little bit at a loss trying to decide what to do next. Hinata-chan? What a surprise to see you here. Hinata blushed a little bit as she heard the voice. Without turning around she replied, Tenkichi? What are you doing here? Naruto frowned a little bit as he studied her back. Now what did I do? Why is she being so cold? Of course, if he could have seen her face, Naruto would have realized that she was trying to keep her embarrassment from showing. I'm in town on a small matter of personal business, you? Hinata had successfully fought off her blush by now, well, mostly anyway, and turned to face him. Kami, save me. Where did he find that outfit? Naruto was currently standing in a pair of black shorts and a deep orange shirt. What had caught Hinata's attention, however, was not the outfit but the accessories that apparently went with it. Currently Naruto was half Yukai, although Hinata assumed it was a costume, and had left his pointy fox ears and two of his tails visible. I'm on AM mission. Or at least I was. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the stutter, even as his nose informed him that Hinata definitely liked what she saw. You were? Hinata blinked for a moment before realizing what she had spoken of her mission in the past tense. Why, yes. We have tea tonight and tea to tomorrow off. Naruto grinned. Finally something was going according to plan. I see that you're admiring my outfit. Kawaii, does he have any idea what those ears do to me? And those tails. He can wrap me in one of those whenever he wants. Outfit, oh my. Hinata went a deep shade of crimson as she realized that instead of looking him in the face, her eyes had been drinking in the tone of his muscles and the fact that his fluffy ears and tails seemed to be as much a part of him as his hands and feet. Anno, I was a little Hinata blushed again and Naruto chuckled. No worries. Having said that, Naruto spun in a slow circle so that Hinata could take in the entire view that his outfit offered. Even as he did this, his nose informed him that his looks were having a very strong effect on the young lady in front of him. As he stopped spinning and turned back to face Hinata, he couldn't help but grin at the glassy-eyed look she gave him. Should I assume that this means you approve? Hinata, still somewhat caught up in a fantasy, it involved those tails wrapped around her and very little else, answered without thinking. Oh, defiantly, I'd love nothing more that too. Suddenly Hinata trailed off as she came back to reality and realized what she had been about to say. Hinata blushed deeply again as Naruto chuckled. Do you have a date for this evening? The quick change in topic left Hinata slightly confused, but she answered anyway. No, not one to speak of, but. Without waiting, Naruto reached over, grabbed her hand, and pressed it softly to his lips. My dearest Hinata, would you honor me by attending the festival with me? Had it not been for the amused twinkle that seemed to promise mischief, Hinata would probably have slammed the door in his face, thinking him an imposter. I really don't have anything to wear in. Cutting her off, Naruto waved aside her worries. Don't worry about it. I saw this cute little white fox outfit downstairs that the shopkeeper agreed to hold for me, just in case. For the first time in many years, Hinata was completely speechless. Here was someone who not only actively sought her attention, but also was thoughtful enough to plan ahead in case she needed something. The fact that he was hotter than hell probably helped too, and her love of foxes, an oddity in Konoha, was just icing on the cake. I suppose I could. Great. Come on Hinata-chan. This is going to be the best party ever. Hinata smiled as she followed Tenkichi downstairs. To Hinata, her face seemed ablaze. As she gazed upon the costume before her, she couldn't help but be mortified. The pure white garment was fashioned after the fabled clothing that a kitsune yukai had once worn. The clothing was defiantly skimpy, looking almost like someone had just put on normal white clothing, and then just continued to wear them until they were frayed beyond patching. The white skirt-like dress was frayed at the ends, with what looked like a tear going down the right side. It only reached to just below the knees, and to Hinata, that wasn't far enough. The top was something of an oddity too. A white halter top, combined with what looked to be a white mesh armless covering, similar to fishnet weaving, but more tightly woven. The final touches were a pair of white sandals, very similar to the ones she already wore, a beautiful white fox face mask, and a genjutsu charm that turned the wearer's hair white. As well as a single tail that was held aloft by a nearly invisible string attached to the back of the shirt. It matched Tenkichi's custom as though it were the opposing costume of a set. His was that of human form of the Kyuubi, and the one he had picked out for her was the one for the Kyuubi's mate, Hikari. She remembered the legend. It was one that always made her cry when she heard it. The legend itself was actually the beginning of the legend of the Kyuubi. The legend said that once, long ago, there had been two powerful kitsune, one known as Kyuubi, the other as Hikari. Kyuubi was a powerful, red-furred, yukai kitsune, who held power over all of the kitsune in the world, and was said to be the guardian of the first of the shinobi villages. Hikari was powerful, but not as powerful as Kyuubi. She was a healer, and traveled throughout the far north, healing the sick. One day, near the border of the northern country and the rest of the world, Kyuubi and Hikari met. This meeting, though entirely accidental, was the start of a love that spanned the millennia. Kyuubi had been reading a scroll and, due to his lack of attention, walked right into Hikari. It had been love at first sight, and at that moment, a powerful bond formed between the two. For years, the two traveled together, near the border. Eventually, the two married and became mates. However, tragedy awaited them. A group of humans made a pact with Orochidao, the eight-tailed snake yukai, to kill Kyuubi. In exchange for making Orochidao the most powerful yukai, the group would be granted power, prosperity, and protection from the snake yukai and all others. So, when Kyuubi and Hikari passed through their village, the villagers separated them, and then, poisoned both. However, Hikari realized what they had done, and fought to find Kyuubi. When she found him, they was within arm's length of the god of death. In order to save him, she used a tensai jutsu, revival technique, and transferred the last of her life force into his body, saving Kyuubi by sacrificing herself. When Kyuubi had awakened, he found his mate dead, and in a blind rage killed every human in the village. Then when Orochidao had tried to flee, Kyuubi had wounded him, leaving behind a corrosive mark on the serpent that, according to legend, burned with the Kyuubi's undying hate for him. It was believed that Orochidao had eventually succumbed to the mark, and that it had destroyed him. However, Kyuubi continued to blame humans for the death of his mate, so he began to slaughter them by the thousands, unleashing all of its power, then disappearing, only to reappear somewhere else years later and doing it again. However, a priestess, during one of Kyuubi's attacks, foresaw that one day, Kyuubi and his mate would be returned to each other. Just as he was about to kill the priestess, she told him to go to Konoha, that only if he were to go there would he ever meet his mate again, and the rest, as they say, is history. Taking the costume into her arms, she allowed herself to be led back to her room. There, after shooing Tenkichi out, she changed into it. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she couldn't help but blush. And yet, even though it felt as though it revealed far too much, it seemed almost more natural to her than her normal clothing, as though she had worn the same thing many times in the past. However, she couldn't allow her mind to be drawn to that fact for too long. A knock came at the door. This was followed by Tenkichi's laughing voice floating through the air. "Are you ready yet, Hinata-chan?" Once again, Hinata's face was stained with a blush, as she moved to the door, and she closed her eyes as she opened it. When Hinata opened the door, Naruto struck with a sense of awe. She looked more beautiful than he could have possibly imagined. Then, for a moment, an image flashed through his head, an image of a beautiful woman, standing in a clearing in a forest. What was that? That, Kit, was Hikari. Who? My mate Kit, she was my mate. Before she died, now, she is lost to me forever. Before he could press more, Hinata's voice broke his concentration. You don't like it? The statement held a sorrow to it that Naruto simply couldn't allow to continue. No, quite the contrary my lady, as you are now the very definition of beauty. Once again, Hinata's face turned crimson as she blushed at the comment. Looking up at his face, she saw him pull down an intricate fox mask over his face. Seeing that, she pulled down her own mask, and taking his hand, they left the hotel and joined the throngs of people who were celebrating. Moving through the street, Kiba was frustrated. Without being able to track Hinata by scent, he was unable to follow her trail. Even Akamaru couldn't pick up her scent once they left the hotel. As he moved through the street, he thought, trying to come up with a way to find Hinata. Normally she wouldn't leave without telling someone. She wasn't very social under normal circumstances. However, the real thing that pissed him off more than not being able to find Hinata, was the fact that he had picked up the scent of some other male, just outside the door. Not only that, but both Hinata's scent, and the stranger's scent were intermingled, meaning that they had, more than likely, left together. As he moved down the street, a passerby bumped him. That was when he heard it. Someone shouting, and looking toward where the shouting was coming from he found a crowd of people who appeared to be gathered around a booth. As he moved closer, he began to hear the shouter more clearly. You think you can rip me off, you swindler? It was a girl. Now, you will give me back my money, or I'll take my repayment out of your hide. Her shouting was followed by a very loud series of barks. Pushing his way through the wall of people, Kiba found himself staring at a very strange sight. A girl, no older than himself, was holding a vendor down across his stand, with a kunai at his throat, and on the man's stand, bearing its teeth in his face, was, at least to Kiba's eyes, a purebred northern wolf, one of the rarest breeds in the world. Most of the dogs that his family had were descendants of that particular breed. His mother's partner, Kuromaru, was about one-half northern wolf, and he was massive. It was abundantly apparent that this particular one could only be about Akamaru's age. Then again, what with Akamaru being pure southern mountain wolf, in a few years he would likely be double, or even triple the size of the wolf that stood before him. Stepping forward, Kiba spoke. Does there seem to be a problem here? As the girl turned to face him, she seemed to look at him in surprise. And you would be? Her rude tone extending both her arrogance and a natural feeling of self-superiority toward him. A leaf nin, and you would be? I would be a cloud nin. With that she reveled her headband, which was tied around her left bicep, just under the jacket she wore. And one that is pissed off at a vendor who has sold her a defective sword. She tossed said sword toward him. Catching it, Kiba unsheathed it in a single smooth draw only to reveal cracks spreading across the surface in a very spider web-like pattern. Looking at the vendor, Kiba realized he didn't seem very worried about his current predicament. That was when it dawned on Kiba, the man was a Yakuza. Looking around through the crowd, he picked out at least 5 more Yakuza thugs. Turning back to face the vendor and girl, he spoke in a soft tone. You really should give her back her money. Even I can tell that this sword is poorly made. You are lucky that you didn't sell this to one of my comrades. She would have taken this sword and shoved it where the sun doesn't shine. So, I would advise that you give her money back, rather than have this drag out into a fight and your entire night get ruined. As he finished, the man's expression turned from one of serene calmness, to one of someone who was contemplating which of 2 pains he would rather have. How about this? I give you the money for the sword, you give her back the money, and I get the damn thing. At this point, the man's expression changed back to its original one. Deal. As Kiba walked down the street away from the hotel, where he had placed the weapon that he intended to give to 1010 as a gift for her to fix, he made his way to one of the deserted parks. Just as he went out of sight of the general public, he was tackled from behind. After landing flat on his face, he was flipped over, only to look straight into the eyes of the girl from earlier. Hi, my name is Rin, what's yours? Kiba was flabbergasted. Here this girl had just tackled him, and she was asking for his name. I'm Kiba, and you need to get off of me. Her response was one that caused Kiba to be taken aback. Why, you don't smell like you're taken. As Kiba sputtered, the girl reached up, pushing aside his coat, and looking at the juncture of his throat and shoulder. Nope, definitely not taken. Kiba knew exactly what she was looking for. Most canine breeds either left large amounts of scent on their mate to ward away others, or they left a mark on the juncture between the throat and shoulder. His family was no different. Even years after his father's death, he was still able to smell his scent from the mark that was on his mother's neck. It was at that moment that the implications of her actions set in, when she ran a single slender finger down his cheek. Such a pretty face too. You know, I think you just need to find the right women, and I think I may have finally found a little fun. It was at that moment that he reacted violently, shoving her off of him, and scrambling away from her. Look, while I am flattered by you and all, but perhaps you should just get up and walk away. I mean, we hardly know each other. While scrambling back away from her, he bumped into something relatively soft and furry. Turning his head, he realized that the wolf pup from earlier was standing behind him, blocking his way. Oh man, I wish I hadn't left Akamaru back at the hotel. As Rin righted herself, she crawled toward him. Then, using the wolf to his advantage, he did a quick flip over it, putting it between the two of them. Now look, I don't even know you, plus, I'm from Konoha, you're from the cloud, it would never work. Her answer was quick. I am not a native of the cloud. I am only a nin of that village because my adopted father lives there. My real parents were from the fire district, so technically, I am a citizen of both villages. And as for not knowing you, we could alleviate that right now. Pushing his chakra into his nose, Kiba attempted to scent his distance from the general population, only to be hit by the dual sense of sake and heat. That was when he realized what was going on. Apparently, after his encounter with her, she must have gone out and gotten herself drunk, and apparently she was a lush when she was drunk. And with that, Kiba pushed chakra into his legs and ran like the wind. Looking back as he cleared the border to the park and landed in the street, he saw the girl, giving chase, followed closely by the wolf. It was at that moment that he decided that tonight would be a long night. Moving through the crowd, Hinata felt almost totally out of place. If it weren't for that fact that Tenkichi's arm was locked with hers, she might have considered returning to the hotel. At the moment, she found herself being pulled through the crowd toward the main street, where the procession bands for all of the important visitors traveled, making their slow but steady journey toward the docks. All the while, all over the city people were enjoying themselves. All of the night's ceremonies would culminate with the launching of the ships at midnight. As they pushed their way through the crowd, they finally caught a glimpse of one of the processions. Looking at the procession's midsection, she spotted someone she never would have suspected. It was the fat man that they had escorted to the city riding in a coverless carriage. He was surrounded by cloud nins and was throwing gold coins into the crowd. Upon closer inspection, she found two lower sitting cushions, one of which was occupied by a person who wore a hanging veil-like mask, hiding whether they were male or female. The other was empty. Looking at Tenkichi again, Hinata could feel her face growing red, and was thankful for the mask that hid her face. She was just wondering why she couldn't seem to keep her eyes off him when he spoke. So, I was wondering, Hinata, what would you like to do tonight? This is a party after all. I don't know. Her voice was quiet and very timid sounding. Naruto could tell that she was trying to avoid stuttering. Oh come on, you have got to like something about parties. I really don't like parties. I like it when it is quiet. Suddenly, she felt herself being lifted into the air, only to find that Tenkichi was holding her bridal style. And with that, he leapt to a rooftop, then began moving quickly across rooftops. After a few minuets of running, Hinata couldn't even hear the loud cries of the people anymore. Then, suddenly, Tenkichi leapt off of the next roof and landed. When she looked around, she realized that they were in a park. However, instead of looking like a normal park, this one had been designed to have a look and feel of a real forest. There were no paths, no signs of human cultivation or caretaking, nothing to indicate that they were inside the limits of a city. It's beautiful, she whispered. Yeah, beautiful, was Tenkichi's quiet reply. However, what Hinata didn't notice was that he wasn't looking at their surroundings, he was staring straight at her. Allowing her to stand on her own. How did you find this place? Naruto had to tear his gaze away from her in a manner that was almost painful to watch before he could respond. Actually I followed your fox. What was he named? Hinata's body language immediately slumped as though she were ashamed, and almost silently she whispered the name. Naruto. Naruto himself frowned, he couldn't seem to figure her out. Why would she be ashamed to? And then it hit him, she felt like she was cheating on his memory. Hinata-chan? Hinata turned to Tenkichi and seemed to wither under his rather intense and searching gaze. She shivered a little bit as he seemed to read a confirmation of something in her eyes. Why, yes Tenkichi-san? I think I have something I need to tell you, but first I need to know your feelings for Naruto. Hinata, trying desperately to find a way to avoid the conversation, answered immediately. Oh, I do love my little fox so. He is always there for me, he always listens so intently. As she spoke, Hinata's mask slipped down, revealing her obviously frightened face. Naruto listened for only a moment before very gently placing a single finger to her lips. The moment he did this, Hinata's face flushed her usual brilliant red, but it was ignored by the half-Yuki. I mean my cousin. Hinata was at a loss. She had been brought up to never lie, but the question he had asked was so personal, and so close to her heart that his directness left her speechless, and surprisingly enough, when he saw that Tenkichi seemed to relax, in fact he even managed a small smile. I was almost hoping that you would answer that way. As Naruto opened his mouth to speak again, a rather harsh laugh sounded from the bushes behind Hinata. Well, what do we have here? Who would dare to trespass on private Yakuza land? Naruto closed his eyes. Of all the rotten timing, now couldn't be worse. Turning around, he managed a semi-jaunty grin. Hello Kisame, fancy meeting you here.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.